Hi, Dominique. Make sure camera's on. We got to see your face.
I'm trying. I'm apologize for that. I'm trying.
We're going to get started with our review questions. The review questions for units 14 and 18. And unit 14 was our math unit. How'd you guys feel about the math? Really bad? Okay, I appreciate the honesty. Memorizing the formulas.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah, so the most important formula that you need to dedicate to memory is the ABC formula, total times rate equals result or part. That's the first formula that you need to dedicate to memory. And the reason why is because the majority of the handouts, the formulas that you have to memorize are based off of ABC. I rearranged the formula to fit that ABC format. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to go through every single one of these math problems together. We're going to start with that right now. Unit 14. If we didn't already do it in class, we're going to do it together. So let's begin with question 5. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yes. A broker lists a motel for $1,450,000. The listing agreement specifies 6.5% sale commission for the first $600,000. 7% for the next $800,000 of the selling price, 8% on all the actual sale price exceeding going over 1.4 million. The broker agrees to a 45-55 split if the property is sold by one of the broker's sales associates. The property is sold in-house, so the broker agrees to pay the associate involved in the transaction 55% of total commission. We're going to get the total commission first and then calculate 55% of that to figure out how much goes to the associate. This is how it works. This is step commissions. By the way, step commissions. And I mentioned I wanted you to get practice with this independently. Then we'll go through it together. Now is the time for that. It's where you're paid on different levels or tiers of commission. Question? Yes. Extra pencil. Oh, very nice. We know the formula for sales commission. It's an ABC formula. Total sales times rate of commission equals your sale commission. Now, we're going to start by identifying what the total selling price is. $1,450,000. Are you with me on that? That was the sale price, correct? But they mentioned within that amount, you earn different percentages of commission based on hitting specific tiers, right? For instance, in the beginning of this question, they say for the first $600,000 of that selling price, do you sell the motel for at least $600,000? Yes. If it's $1,450,000, of course, you sold it for at least $600,000. They said you're going to receive how much percent on that first $600,000? 6.5%. And when you do the math, you get how much? Is it 39,000?
Yeah.
Multiply.
39. Mm-hmm.
I'm relying on you guys to do the calculations and confirm. Maybe you have the notes in front of you. I think you missed a 0. I think you multiply by. Check this out. Look, I'll work on this with you. Look, check this out. Hold on, figure this out. 600,000 multiplied by 0.065. 39,000.
Mm-hmm.
You got 39,000, right? Okay.
Right.
So are you with me so far? Perfect. Now they mention, if you continue reading, for the next 800,000, well, you have to ask yourself the question, if I can get your attention for just a second. Do you sell the motel for at least $800,000 more on top of the 600? Because we already hit that tier. 600, we already hit that tier. Do you sell it for at least $800,000 more?
Yes.
We'll add the two figures together. 600 plus 800 is 1,400,000. Are we within this amount? Are we still within the sale price?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do hit the next tier, $800,000, and you receive how much percent on that? And you get what,
7%?
56,000? You get 56,000? Do the math. Take 800,000.
Yeah.
I mean, what's 8 times 7? Isn't it 56?
Mm-hmm.
So multiply by 0.07. And yeah, you get 56,000. So we already earned 39,000. Then we earned 56,000. Is there room for a little bit more? What do they mention? They say if you sell the motel for anything over what? What amount? It says it in the question.
1.4 million.
1.4 million. They tell us within the question. So this is how it's going to look. You take the total selling price, which we know is 1,450,000, right? That's what you sold it for. But they said if you sell it for anything over 1.4 million, do you sell it for at least 1.4 million? What's left over? Yeah. And they said on that $50,000, you're going to receive how much percent? 8%. So do the math. I mean, 5 times 8. It's 40, right? Where do you get 4,000?
4,000.
$4,000? Okay. Do you understand how we got this number? You understand how we got the 50,000? Okay. Here's where you got to focus. They said the associate receives 55% of total commissions. What are the total commissions earned off this transaction? Add those 3 figures together and we're going to plug it in here. Add those 3. I got 99,000. You tell me if I'm correct.
Yes, you are.
Add those 3 figures together. You get 99? Okay.
Yes.
So that's the total commission, right? You add those 3, total commission. But the associate receives how much percent? 55. So multiply by 55%. Take 99,000. Yep. Multiply by 0.55. And yes, that would be the correct answer. 54,000. 450? Does that match up with one of our choices?
It's letter
Correct
B.
answer. B is in Bravo. And there's the 99 to throw you off, right? Do you understand how we got that number? Okay. My goal is to break it down step by step so you understand where maybe I'm confirming things that you already knew because you did the math and you followed the correct steps. You got the correct answer. Great job. Or I might be helping you relieve some confusion, some mistakes that you made when solving these problems. So that's what this time is for, step by step. Does that sound okay? We're going to go through it together, every single one of the questions that we didn't already work on together in class. That's my promise to you, step by step. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask, right? Because after this, you're going to be on your own. But if you got the exam prep, remember, I made math videos, step by step. The same things we do in class, I recorded myself. So that way you can follow along, pause it, watch it as many times as you wish. Regardless, let's continue to number 6. What I find interesting about a lot of these math questions, if you read out the last sentence, it usually reveals the formula that you have to apply to solve it. Same for the last question. Look at this one. Look at the last sentence. What is the builder's percentage of loss?
Loss.
So we know it's going to be the profit or loss formula, right? The other one was calculating sales commission. What is the associate's commission? Well, that's sales commission formula. But good news, they're both ABC formulas. A times B equals C. Let me read this out to you. A builder purchases a residential lot for $42,000, constructs a new house at a cost of $178,000. The builder later sells the property for $187,000. What is the builder's percentage of loss on the sale? You got an answer? No? You said B? Okay, anybody else? We could take out our profit or loss handout. It's an ABC formula, total times rate equals result or part. If you know what you paid for something, your cost, and what you sold it for, we can always calculate the rate of return, the percentage you got back when you sold it. We use rate of return to then find out the percentage of profit, or in this case, they're asking us for the percentage of loss. So we know it's going to be a loss right off the bat. Let's start with what the builder spent, their cost. We know the lot was $42,000, right? Plus construction, which was $178,000. So that means their all-in cost is $220,000, correct? But then later sold the property for how much?
187.
$187,000. Look, we have everything we need. That's it right there. Go through your steps, ABC. Isolate rate of return, get rid of everything else, in this case, the total cost, slide and divide, and we take 187,000 divided by 220,000. Tell me what you get. Question. Are you asking? It may be. But I mentioned, I rearranged these formulas to make it easy for you. And I based most of the formulas that you need to know off of ABC. So that way, when you sit down to take your state exam, the first formula, you write down ABC, and there's so many ABC formulas based on how I structure it. So that way you can write them down, set it to the side, not think about it until you get to a specific math problem. You made your own little cheat sheet. And they can't prevent you from doing that when you sit down and take your exam and copy down notes. That's not an issue. But yes, in my opinion, I made the math a whole lot simpler based on those handouts I provided to you versus what's in the textbook. I would suggest stick with the handouts. That's my suggestion. You are free to do as you wish, but I've only been doing this for a couple of decades. Anyhow, when you do this math, check this out. You take 187 and you divide it by 220, you get 0.85, right?
Right.
0.85, which is 85%. What they're saying is that this builder got 85% of their money back. Is this the loss? No, but we need it to calculate the loss. Before making profit, I'm just asking you, the builder needed to at least break what? What is breaking even as a percentage? Get how much percent of their money back? Exactly. So if the goal was to at least get 100%, but they fell short, they only got 85% of their money back, 85% rate of return. That means when you subtract, you'll see how much they actually lost, which was 15. Does that match up with one of our choices? Correct answer is B as in Bravo. Any questions on this? Is it making sense now? The most important thing is that you challenge yourself. If you didn't challenge yourself last night, it's going to be that much harder for you. If you at least challenge yourself and made mistakes, make those mistakes now. So that way we can learn from it, and come time to take the state exam, you're prepared. And you see the worst case scenario. Right here, I took 187,000 divided by 220, I got 85%. And then I took 100%, which would have been breaking even, but they didn't get 100% of their money back. They only got 85% of their money back, rate of return on the sale. So that means they fell short. When you subtract, Take 100, subtract 85. What do you get? There you go. Now, 7, you bought a house in Citrus, Florida for 130,000, gave it a positive 19,480, assumed a recorded mortgage of 90,520, and signed a new second mortgage and note for 20,000. What are the total taxes due as a result of this transfer of property? Did you get an answer? We could take out our handouts for calculation of state taxes related to the finance and purchase of real property. This is something we were confused with last night, and I encourage you to challenge yourself first. Go through a practice question. Then we have an opportunity to talk about it tomorrow. Well, today is tomorrow from yesterday. Let's talk about what we have here in front of us. In this transaction, are there any new loans involved? New second mortgage of how much? $20,000.
$20,000.
Precisely. And anytime we have a new loan, we create a new loan in the state of Florida. Florida wants to charge you 2 taxes on that new loan. The intangible tax, which is only on what type of loans? And they want to charge you the documentary stamp taxes on the note. That's on what type of loans? Which include new and existing.
Mm.
There's no other new loan besides the 20,000, just so you know. Okay, I can save you some time. I'm not going to put you on the spot. But remember, you have to tax that $20,000 2 times, right? So you plug it in here to get taxed for the second time. But then they said there's another loan involved, an existing, an assumed loan of how much? $90,520. So state of Florida is going to charge you taxes on that existing loan, right? But remember, this is a what type of tax? And what do we know about stamp taxes? Let's review. Before multiplying, before doing the math, all amounts less than how much?
100.
You round it up to 100. Is $20 less than a $100 bill? So does this
Yes.
amount change? Does the amount change? Turns into 90,000 what? 600. God bless you.
600.
And that's the amount we're going to use for our calculation. And before we do any math, we're just plugging in numbers right now. We're just organizing. That's it. We know that involved in this transaction, it's not just creating a new loan and taking over an existing one. The whole purpose of this transaction is to transfer property. They say it in the question. And we know that there's state taxes when you transfer ownership in the state of Florida. That's called the stamps on the deed. And you need a what to calculate it? Luckily in the
First
question,
price.
they already provide it, which is how much? 130,000. We don't have to do any additional work. They say purchase price 130,000. Did we need the deposit of 19,480? Do we even need that? No. It's irrelevant. Because they provide the purchase price already. Now we can actually do the math. Everything is plugged in. Let's multiply across by the appropriate tax rate. Remember, 2 mils times 3.5 mils equals 7 mils. You remember these 3? 2 35 millimeters, pew pew, to kill. James Bond, 007. Okay, let's continue. And you gotta say the pew pew, all right? Otherwise, it's not gonna stick. 20,000 times 2 mils or 0.002. Tell me what you get.
Yeah.
Do the math. Everybody should be calculating. I'll do it with you. Look, 20,000 times 0.002.
40.
You get $40. That's it for the intangible tax. Now we can move on to the next tax. You're missing a decimal or you're missing a 0 somewhere. Okay, for the next calculation, what I like to do, I like to add these together and then multiply across. And when you add 20,000 plus 90,600, you get 110,600. If you add those together. And then you can multiply by 3.5 mils,
0.5.
0.0035. And what do you get? 387.10?
Yes.
You get $387.10. And now you take the purchase price of 130,000, multiply by 007.007, James Bond, and you get 910. Did you get that? When you add those three figures together, you're going to get the total state taxes owed as a result of this transfer of property. Look, I'm going to add those figures together. 910 plus 387 and 10 cents plus 40 bucks, right? You get 1,337 and 10. Does that match up?
Yes. Letter D.
It's not going to come all in one day. Don't beat yourself up. You're not going to get it all in one day. You can make sense of the math. That's the whole point. I want you to understand the math. Understand that the math is not difficult. So that way you don't get discouraged from going back and studying it, because you got to study to pass your exam, the math portion of your exam. And don't put yourself in a position where you're thinking, listen, I'm just going to try to pass the exam without focusing on the math. One question could mean the difference between pass and fail. Don't sell yourself short. You can pass the math portion of your exam. Don't do that to yourself. Even if math was not your strong suit growing up, this is not cosines, tangents, trigonometry, calculus. It's multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's all we're doing. You got to remember what's on these handouts, these formulas, how to structure. I know that's going to take time. I'm not putting pressure on you to learn it all in one day, but I do expect you to at least challenge yourself, so that way it's going to stick that much better. I know it will if you practice. That's why I encourage you to get the exam prep, not because I'm trying to sell you something. It's the cheapest exam prep you can find out there. I'm not making a lot of money on this thing. I'm telling you right now, if you look for exam prep, it's 99 bucks. Anywhere you go, it's like anywhere from 70 to 100, sometimes $150. And it still doesn't include everything that I include in the exam prep. The point I want to say is you need to consume as many practice questions as you can get your hands on. Luckily, I put about 600 to 700 in that exam prep, and I'm adding more all the time. No, there's more. That's just flashcards. I also put crossword puzzles. I also put
So you can like say.
Well, here's the thing. There's no problem with being over-prepared. There are certain subjects, like those important units that I got you guys to copy down, that you should focus more so on than the rest. Not saying that you can't randomly be tested on some terminology from a unit that's not as important, to be fair and answer your question. But I put emphasis on those specific units that I already shared with you, because I know that is going to be the major focus of your exam. That's a passing grade. If you can harness the knowledge within those important units, those 9 that I shared with you, you'll be in good shape for the state exam without feeling overwhelmed. But if you try to consume every single detail in the textbook, God bless you, and think you're going to get it in just a short time period, it's going to be very difficult unless you have a eidetic memory, like you have a photographic memory, essentially. Well, some of those people say it's a curse because they can vividly remember all the bad things too and relive all the bad things. The people that have that memory, you can say a random date and they can tell you what day of the week is it. Okay. July 4th, 1965. What day of the week is it? All right, come on.
Michael.
Yeah. I
Which
put
are
those math
the
handouts as well.
which are the chapters that you're saying, the nine ones that you're saying that is the most important for us?
I'll share them with you right now.
Thank you.
4, 5, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16.
Can you repeat it one more time? I'm sorry.
It's right
It's
here. Look at my
rating.
screen.
Thank you.
State exam. My exam, we already know what to expect. You've been making highlights, right?
Yes.
Well, it's 30 days. I don't have this.
Don't fail then.
Mhm.
How many
You have
questions are on
everything
the
you need.
status?
Don't feel like the final exam is going to be more difficult. Listen, the state exam does not tell you exactly what they're going to test you on. But luckily, you have an instructor that believes that it's important for you to know and have that information so you can prepare, and you should get 100%, is what I'm saying.
How many questions is on the state exam?
100. Same thing for the class exam. At the end of class today, I'm going to review the 5-step guide. I'll go through it with you guys to make sure that you understand next steps. And there's no doubt. Of course, you have the 5-step guide. You can always look at it. You don't have to wait for me. But I'm going to go through those details, and you guys can ask questions about it. Time periods, when you could take the class, when you could take the state, when how to prepare, what to do, strategies, so forth. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
The exam is gonna be like available to do tomorrow.
It's going to be available. Might be available like midnight tomorrow. Well, I mean, midnight Saturday. So you could take it as early as Saturday. I know people that take their class exam immediately because they've been taking proper notes. Anytime they have a highlight with a question number next to it, they put it on a separate sheet of paper. They make their own little study guide. They put it in order. It really depends on what works for you. And that's why I also encourage you to form study groups, because maybe, luckily, somebody has already started on it and is willing to share. I don't know.
And you have the book online too as well, right? You said
Yes.
you would prefer to like computer and paper. Yeah.
By the way, the exam prep can be translated into any language.
No, it's bad. Like if you translate it for kids, you're trying to take the test in English, Spanish, or whatever, you're gonna fail for sure.
No, he said, not the same.
No, but yeah, it's still like I can learn things in Portuguese. Because otherwise I'm gonna go to the test and I'm gonna know
The
everything.
first time that I went to get
Fair enough. I thought it was a benefit. All right, let's continue. Number 8. Yes.
On the side, so I can understand the meaning of the, the phrase.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, I have to memorize that word,
Yes.
that meaning, that word in English. So there's still this.
Yes.
Up to the top for me.
Yes, of course. I understand. I'm with you 100%. The Cameron Academy exam tutor, or AI tutor, that's trained on your entire textbook, all real estate knowledge in Florida. You can also ask it to explain things to you as well. So it's basically me 24/7. It's
I have done that. It's my best.
so you can plug it. Yeah, well, it is. It's AI enabled, so, but it's specifically trained on Florida real estate knowledge. So it's purpose specific. All right, number 8, a broker lists a property with an agreement to a 7% commission to be split as follows: 45% to listing broker, 55% to selling broker. That might be confusing to you, that terminology. We know who the listing broker is, right? Who are they working with, buyer or seller?
buyers.
seller.
No, the seller
Listing.
listing
Yeah, they're listing the seller's property. But then you see selling broker. What's a selling broker? They're working with the buyer. I know that terminology could be confusing. Why do they call the buyer side the selling broker, right? Because they say you're selling the buyer property. But it is confusing. But pay attention to the details. 55% to a listing. I'm sorry, 45 to a listing, 55 to the selling, right? An associate who works for the selling, so they identify what side you need to calculate for, right? Sells the property for $160,000. The sales associate agrees to a 60% share of all commission she brings to the company. How much is due to the associate? We know the formula, correct? It's an ABC formula. Total sales, right? Times your rate of commission equals your actual commission that you earn, right? What is the sale? And you multiply it by the commission. 7%. Do that math. And you should get 11,200, right? You get 11,200?
7,100. No, 200, sorry.
Okay. 11,200. And then you split between both brokers working the deal because the agreement is a split. What side are you calculating for, the listing or the selling side? I highlighted it. Look in the question.
The selling.
Yes, it says the associate is working for the selling side, which receives 55%. Selling side. You have the listing side and you have the selling side. Remember, I mentioned that confusion, so be careful with that. And you get 6,160 if I'm not mistaken. Check to see if that's correct. Take 11,200, multiply by 55%. What do you get? Everybody should be calculating.
160, yeah.
6,160? Okay. And the associate receives what share of that? What percentage of that? 60%. So when you do the math, you should get your answer 3,696. Tell me if that's correct.
Yes.
You can multiply by 0.6.
Yeah.
Take 6,160. The associate gets 60%. So multiply. Yep. Or 0.6. And that's the correct answer. 3,696. You got what? Look, check this out. You got that? Okay, all right, cool. You must be punching in some numbers by accident. But 6,160, check this out. And you multiply by 0.6. Okay, all right. Just making sure it's not like a malfunction in your calculator, but. All right, question 9. A woman owned 3/8 of her property. She was paid $45,000 for her share of the proceeds from the sale of this property. What is the total selling price? So they're asking us to work backwards to get the answer. And this is the formula that we're going to use to work backwards to get the answer. It's the ABC formula. How do I know? Well, A is always going to represent the what of something? Total times B, which is always going to represent the rate of something, equals C, which represents your result or part of something. You remember this? But do we know what the total selling price is? No, they're asking us for that. That's going to be our missing variable. But look up here. We don't know what the total selling price is. If I can get your attention.
Yes.
If I can get your attention. We don't know what the total selling price is, but we know that 3/8 of that selling price, 0.375 in decimal form, that's the rate, right? Sold for how much? What was her part? 45,000.
45,000.
Now it's simple. ABC. We're only missing this one variable. We have the other two. Isolate, get rid of everything else on this side of the equation. What mathematical symbol separates the equation? The equal
Equal.
symbol. How do you get rid of this? You slide
Divide and divide.
and divide. It works every single time. So you take 45,000 and you divide it by 0.375, and you'll find out that the total that they're asking us for is $120,000. 0.375. I just converted the fraction. I converted the fraction. I took 3 and I divided by 8. You.
You know, 6172 definitely not working. 90, that's not even half, like 45 is not half, like if it was 4/8, you know?
I understand.
Wait, but how did you get your rate again? The 375?
322, 3 push, correndo atrás, tá?
So look, I took the numerator, 3, the top of the fraction, and I divided by 8, the bottom number of the fraction, and I got 0.375. I just converted it. And we talked about conversions at the beginning of our session yesterday, right? You got to know these conversions. It just makes your life easier. Okay, let's move on. Now I can close out sales commission, free up some bandwidth here. Number 11. A buyer is purchasing a house with a closing schedule for April 22nd, non-leap year. You see, they tell us in the question if it's leap year or non-leap year. The annual property taxes, which we already know that it's annual, $2,652. The sale contract states that the day of the closing belongs to who? The buyer. Calculate the property tax proration using the 365-day method. Let's take out our handout for calculation, prorating unpaid property taxes, or property taxes in general. Same thing. And what's always our first step when doing a proration calculation? Get the daily what? Rate. In this case, the daily rate of property taxes. What's your annual property taxes? 2,652. Okay, good. You're with me here. So you take it, 2,652. How do you get from annual to daily? You have to divide by the number of days in the what? How many days? You said use the 365-day method, non-leap year. So you simply divide by 365. And you get this long number in your calculator. Leave it in your calculator because we're going to need it for step number 2. And you don't round until you get to the end. Otherwise, your answer is going to be off. So it's 2657 continues on, right? But leave the number in your calculator. We're going to need it for step number 2. Let's identify the closing date, which they already share with us. It's April what? April 22nd.
April 22nd.
And the day of the closing belongs to who? Buyer. What's the whole purpose of this calculation? To figure out how many days worth of property tax is the seller responsible for? They own the property before ownership changed to you. So they're responsible for a portion of that property tax bill. They have to pay part of that 2,652. We have to figure out how many days the seller owned it before ownership switched. So you start January 1st and add up all the way to the closing date. You have to know how many days are in each month. January, yes, has 31. Use your knuckles. Plus February is 28. Plus March, which is 31. And we're in April, right?
Right.
But here's the thing about April. You don't own the property for the full month. The closing date is April 22nd, but the day belongs to who? So when does the seller stop owning? On the 21st. Add those figures together, and that's what I got. That's what I got. Tell me if I'm wrong. Add those 4 figures together. Tell me if you get 111 days.
Yes. No.
Yeah. 111.
Check.
God.
Oh, I know one.
Okay.
Mhm.
I would love if this is a theme. I would love if it's a theme. Like every calculation is just like 1 0 off or 1 decimal point or one like. Because that's an easy fix, right? But I think it's amusing. Anyhow, so let's go ahead and take. Oh, I cleared out my calculator. Sorry. So you took 2,652 divided by 365, and you get this daily rate, which should already be in your calculator. And now you multiply it by the days the seller owned, 111. And now you can round to the nearest cent, because we're talking about money, right? The nearest cent, nearest penny. You get 806. And how much?
649.
How many cents? 806, round to the nearest cent. 50.
50.
806.50. Because the next number is 5 or over, right? So yes, it would be 50. Does that answer match up? 806.50?
Yes.
Let's see. Yes.
Oh.
But there's two answers, either A or C, right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you have to know the credits and the debits. Who's responsible for that 806.50, buyer or seller? The seller. So you're taking away from the seller. That's a debit. What answer says debit seller? Well, let's see. Debit seller and simultaneously credit what? Credit buyer.
Buyer.
806.50. All right. Let me close that out. The next question 12. A woman bought 3 200-foot lots on a lake for $500 per front foot each. She then subdivided into 6 lakefront lots, which she then sold for $62,500 each. What is her percentage of profit? We're going to use the profit or loss formula. Let me review with you guys again. If you know what you paid for something, your total cost, and what you sold it for, you can always calculate the rate of return, our missing variable. We then use rate of return to find out how much profit or how much loss. In this case, we know it's a profit. They're saying how much of a profit did she make. So check it out. This is how you figure out what she paid per lot. Because we know what she sold each lot for. How much? They tell us in the question. 62,500, right? But this is how you figure out her cost per lot. This, you got to pay attention on this. These are the steps you take. 3 200-foot lots on a lake for $500 per front foot each. But then she subdivided. She divided into how many?
6.
Divide into 6. And when you do that math, you'll get her cost per lot. I'll show you. Look. 3 200-foot lots valued at $500 per foot. So just for the 3 lots, $300,000. But she didn't leave them as 3 lots. She divided them into how many? 6. So you take that and divide it by 6, and her cost per lot is what? 50,000. That's her cost per lot. Look, now it's simple. Slide and divide, guys. Take 62,500 and divide it by 50,000, and you get 1.25, right? Okay, correct. Good. We got 1.25. Remember, this is a percentage, though. How do you change this to a percentage? Multiply by 100 or move the decimal 2 spaces to the right and tell me what you get. You got 125%. That is correct. Good job. But we're not done. Because what did we just calculate? The rate of what? This is not the profit. This is the rate of return. Did she get at least 100% of her money back?
Yes.
Anything over 100%, anything over breaking even is her actual profit. So when you subtract 100% from this amount, you get her profit of what percent? 25%, correct? Does that match up? So the correct answer is B as in Bravo. Is it making a little bit more sense now that we're going through it together step by step? Don't hesitate to ask any questions, okay? 13. Now 13, the only formula you have to know, and most of us already know this, is how to calculate square footage of an area. Do you know how to calculate square footage of an area? It's like width by depth sort of thing, or width by length. So that's the only thing you really need to know to solve. But I'm going to show you. I'll go through the steps together with you guys. A warehouse measures 720 by 500 and rents for 118,000. What's the rent per square foot per month? Let's identify first what the total square footage is. The total square footage. You take 720 and multiply by what?
Times 500.
And you get how much square feet?
360,000.
360,000 square feet. 720 multiply multiply 720 by 500. Okay, all right, go. You got it right now. They want you to calculate the rent per square foot per month. This is how you figure it out. You take the rent, which is how much? 118, and you divide it by the square feet, which we just calculated, 360,000. And then you get the rent per square foot. So when you do the math, tell me what you get.
0.327777.
Round to the nearest cent. This is what I got. I got 33 cents per square foot per month. Does that match up? Okay, a common mistake is reversing these numbers. Some people take 360,000 and divide it by 118. They reverse these numbers. They prepare for you making that mistake. You would have got C if you made that mistake. But it's not C.
Yep.
B is in Bravo. They don't want you to fail. They want you to know your stuff, okay? Don't say that. They don't want to make it easy. All right, 15. Exactly. You don't want to do things that everybody can do. You want the barrier of entry to be difficult. Like, for instance, when I was really young, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I had a friend that invited me to one of those multi-level marketing things. You know what I'm talking about? You've never heard of MLM? You go to one of these meetings that it's like selling essential oils or selling Oragold or Herbalife. And have you heard of this? Or selling makeup, Mary Kay, multi-level marketing, right? You've heard of this stuff, right? They just get you into the network so you buy the stuff, really, right? And it's the people at the top. It's a pyramid scheme. Have you heard of pyramid scheme? The people at the top make the money. You're getting in way late. So, like, one of my friends, he's like, oh, I have this really cool opportunity. I want to invite you to come to this meeting. Maybe you got one of these invitations as well. I can't be the only one. Whatever. Yeah, life insurance. Exactly. They do that as well. And I went to this meeting and I'm looking around at the crowd and I'm thinking, anybody can do this. Not to like be mean, but you understand, like when you're surrounded. Yeah. So I'm looking around. I'm like, you know, if these people are want to do the same thing that I'm thinking about doing, I don't want to do something that anybody can do. I want to challenge myself. This is one of those things. So don't do easy things. You know the saying, right? This is what I tell my kids all the time. I say, do easy things, have a hard life. Do hard things, have an easy life. This is the same thing. Repeat that mantra. Anyhow. Welcome the hard things in your life, because that's where the opportunity lives. No, not that one. A couple is purchasing an apartment building. Each of the 5 apartments rents for $815 per month. The closing is scheduled for September 16th, and the rents were collected on September 1st. What is the rent proration for this transaction, and to whom will the amount be credited? Day of the closing belongs to the buyer. This is the handout. Prorating monthly rent. Let's plug in the information that's provided to us. Do we know the monthly rent? Yes, but they don't give us the exact amount. They give us enough information, right? They say, how many units are there? But
5.
each unit rents 4. And then when you do that math, you multiply, you find out the total rent you collect from all 5 tenants is, that's what I got, $4,075. You got the same amount? Do the math and you'll find out. You could just confirm.
Yeah.
Just have your calculators handy always for when we're doing math. The closing date, which they already present to us, is September 16th. And the day belongs to who? The buyer, right? Which is common. But they'll tell you in the question, and they have to. Just like we've seen in past questions, they always have to tell you this. Now, our goal always when doing a proration calculation is to get the daily what? In this case, your daily rate of monthly rent. Well, you take the monthly rent and you divide by the number of days in the closing month. What closing month are we in? September. How many days in September?
16. Yeah, 30.
30 days in September. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use your knuckles.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. They can't prevent you from taking your knuckles with you to take your exam.
Yeah.
Anyhow, do the math, and what do you get? 135.83. 33333 continues on.
Yeah.
All right, leave that in your calculator because we're going to need it for step number 2. Now, step number 2 is to multiply the daily rate by the days owned by the buyer in the closing month. Because what's the whole purpose of this? Kanae, what's the whole purpose of this?
To credit the buyer.
Figure out how much of that rent that the owner, the seller, already collected from all the tenants should you get. Because you own the property for a certain number of days within the month. You should get part of that rent. Well, we have to figure that out. When does the buyer start owning and getting credit for the rent that was already collected? No, on the 16th, because the day belongs to who? The buyer. So you start on the 16th. And if you tally 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, there's 30 days in the month. And it's 15. What a coincidence. We saw that example, didn't we? And do the math. You get 135.83.
Times 15.
And you multiply by 15.
2037.
0.37.
Exactly.
50 cents.
2037.50 cents. Round to the nearest cent, of course. And does that match up with one of our choices? Yeah.
See.
It's going to be C as in Charlie. Credits to the buyer. Yes. I just want you to see that you should have no shame in your game, okay? And tallying is perfectly fine. It's you and the exam. There's nobody else judging you. If you try to subtract, you might make a mistake, but if you tally, you're going to get it right. You're going to find out the exact amount of days. because you're going to start on the correct day and then just keep on tallying. And you're like, okay, I know what I'm working with here. Anyhow, we're done with this unit. Now, let's go on to Unit 18. Unit 18. Which ones? Your handouts? Yeah, we're going to go through some of the handouts. Didn't we go through number 1 already? We got answer. B is in Bravo. Dominique, can you please mute?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Okay. Number 2. When do property taxes from the previous year become delinquent? You got it. April Fool's Day.
April 1st.
Number 3. I'm just going to ask you for the ones that, just tell me what you got for number 3. What'd you guys get?
The stepping.
A is in Alpha. 4. C is in Charlie. You didn't work on these?
B.
What page is that?
I think that was the day.
No. The day before I said do just 13, but this one, I said do both. All right. Number 5. A widowed, permanently disabled non-veteran has been granted a homestead exemption on their $270,000 residence. What's their total exemption for county? Is their assessed value over 75? So initially, if their assessed value is over 75 and we're talking about county, that's what they're asking us for, does she get the 50? Does she qualify for the 50 initially? So we know it's at least 50. And she's also a what? A widow. How much do you get for being a widow?
5,000.
Oops, I keep on clicking on the wrong one. You get 5,000 for being a widow. So 50 plus 5 is what? 55. Is that one of our choices? B is in Bravo. It says non-veteran.
But doesn't a
If you were a
non-veteran?
veteran, if you were a veteran, you get an additional 5,000. It says permanently disabled non-veteran. Just a heads up on that. There used to be an exemption if you were over a specific age. If you were over 75, I believe, but they got rid of that. Maybe it will come back. I don't know. Number 6 is D is in Delta.
Wait, Michael,
Devin.
I have a question. I
Yes.
thought there was a totally permanently disabled non-veteran got 5,000 on the sheet.
Let's
Like
look
on
at
the
sheets
handout.
again. Totally and permanently disabled non-veteran. Yeah, you get 5,000 for that. Actually, hold on a second. Give me a second. You might be right. You might be right. Hold on a second. Permanently disabled non-veteran. Totally and permanently disabled non-veteran. There was the wording there. Let me think about it. You might be right. I might have missed that. That good catch, by the way. First of all, thank you. But let's focus on number 7. If the lot frontage is 100 feet and the street paving is $40 per running foot, the city is going to cover 25% of the paving costs. What will the special assessment be? Let's go through the math together. First of all, what's your lot frontage? 100 feet.
60,000.
60,000. Okay. Yeah, so I might have missed that. Thank you. That was a test. Good job. You passed. I can make mistakes too. All right. So what do you get when you do the math?
4,000.
$4,000. $4,000. But the city said they're going to cover how much percent?
25%.
Which means you have to cover what percent?
75.
sorry, I heard.
75%. And when you do the math, you get 3,000. Do the math. Take 4,000, multiply by 75%. You get 3,000. But we're not done yet. How many
Right.
sides of the street are there?
2.
You always take that and divide by what? 2, and you'll get your special assessment of 1,500. Does that match up?
Yeah.
Correct answer is B as in Bravo. B as in Bravo. All right. We worked on 8, 9. What'd you get for 9? What's the maximum interest you can make off of a tax lien? 18%. 10. What'd you guys get?
Getting the dollar.
Correct answer is C as in Charlie. Remember that if you sell your primary residence as a married couple filing a joint return, tax return, $500,000 profit is tax-free. Do you remember that?
Yes.
But anything over that, IRS is going to charge you capital gains tax, and that's what we see here, based on your tax bracket after $500,000. But that's because they're a married couple filing a what? Joint return. Joint return. You'll see another question about this. Look, it says the maximum amount of profit that can be excluded from taxation when you sell your primary residence as a couple filing separately. It's $250. Because if you're filing jointly, it's $500,000.
Why would you like file separate being married and leaving?
Some people wanna make more money. You don't wanna mess.
I don't know. I don't get it.
You don't file.
No, I file jointly. It's easier. It just makes things easier.
But you don't think you get one.
I mean, it's $250 the individual, right? $250 for one spouse, $250 for the other spouse. Anyhow, 12. Tax advantages of homeownership do not include homeowners insurance. 13. What'd you guys get? It's A as in Alpha. 14 is B as in Bravo. 15 is D as in Delta. I really wanted to focus on the math because there's a lot of math yesterday, right? All right. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to get into our session today. Today is going to be Unit 16. And then we'll officially be done with our textbook. Go you. We're going to be done tonight. And tomorrow, because you earned it, you're going to have that time to prepare for your class exam. Use that time wisely, right? And I'll give you advice at the end of class before you leave. It's not just 16 and so long, farewell. We're going to review what you need to know, next steps, so we're clear. And just like you were asking in the beginning, Caroline, you're saying, okay, just to be clear, if I do the fingerprints, what do I do with the application? When do I submit it and so forth? What am I supposed to get? I'm going to go through that with you guys.
What time? We're back.
Take a 15-minute break.
15.
Actually, just take a quick 20-minute break. Be back at 6:20.
6:30. Huh?
6:20.
So 10 minutes.
10-minute break.
10 minutes. So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. All right.
I was gonna say 15, but I said 10-minute break. Or maybe did I say 20?
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
I didn't even know what I said. All right, so 10-minute break. Be back at 6:20. I meant to. I thought of 6:20 and then I said 20-minute break for whatever reason, but
All right.
that's my dyslexia. Anyhow, I'll see you guys.
For tomorrow, we don't have to. Never mind.
She said it should be fine, she said, but also depends on maybe whatever you're doing it for. I said, no, I need it to be green, I need all my doors to be green, because I don't wanna have to pay for this again. I used to do it for people, and when I was young. recording? I'm like, it's fine because it's not working. I'm like, no deal.
Yeah, sometimes there was a trick. We used to have a gentleman. He would come to the class and do fingerprinting rather than what we had, the service we have now, and he would use some kind of solution, and then he would do it, and it usually worked.
Spit out to me and her. I said you freaking on there. I was like,
Lucky for her. All right. Yeah.
there's different options. You recommend the Premiere Plus?
Well, it comes with additional tools. Oh, it's online. It's only a 22-hour class.
A live online or is it video?
There's videos and then there's just, like modules. I mean, if videos are your thing, then, it's to each his own, right? Some people like reading, some people like watching videos. So the video version one, you watch videos and then you take quizzes, essentially, which is easier. It's easier for me. That's what I prefer. Exactly. It's like modules that you read. So it's like, that's like, I think the basic version. And then the video version one is like the more premier one. Well, there's only a few different math calculations you have to make, but most of the stuff you learn in this class is what you need to know to pass the mortgage exam. About like 80 to 85% of what you learn in this class is what you need to know to become a mortgage loan originator. You take a state portion and a national portion of the exam. So the details, you're talking about on our website, right? Yeah. On the course page of the website, it tells you every single step and what you need to go through. It's just like getting your real estate license. You have to submit the application, you have to submit fingerprints, you have to take a pre-license course, which is the one that you were asking about, and you have to take a class exam and a state exam. No, fingerprints, remember, exactly. So imagine if you decide to get your barber's license tomorrow, you'd have to do a separate set of fingerprints specifically for that license. They won't accept fingerprints. I know. You can't apply it to another license. It would be great, but it's just, they don't allow it. All right, so Unit 16. Let's jump into our session for today. Unit 16. What is Unit 16 all about? Real estate what? Appraisal? Didn't we talk about appraisal on the first day of class? It's the process of estimating the value of real property, correct? And it's an art, not a science. And we're going to learn math that's used. We're going to learn math used to calculate the value of real property, but it's not 100% accurate. These methods are not 100% accurate because it's ultimately your opinion of value, what you think the property is worth. And like the saying goes, who has an opinion? Everybody has their own 2 cents and wants to throw it in. So your estimate of value might not be the same as mine. And guess what? Both are acceptable. Both are acceptable. Now, you might not like what the value of the property is, so you might ask or pay for a second opinion. But it ultimately comes down to somebody's opinion. And you might be asked your opinion of value. Are you allowed to give your estimate of value for whatever property? Are you allowed to give an opinion of value? Yes, you can.
Yes.
Can you appraise property?
Opinion,
yes, you can. As a real estate licensee. You're allowed to do so, but you can't represent yourself as a state certified or licensed appraiser. That requires a completely separate license. And you can't prepare an official appraisal report for what type of transactions? Do you remember?
Real estate.
Real estate related financial transactions. Transactions where financing is involved. They won't accept the sales associate's estimate of value, which you are soon to be. They want a licensed appraiser's estimate of value, an official appraisal report. Can you charge for your estimate of value as a sales associate? Just like appraisers can, but you can only charge a flat what? Fee based on the time and difficulty of the job. You cannot charge a what?
Based on
A
the
commission because
property
of the
value.
conflict of.
Interest.
This is all stuff we
Interest.
already talked about. I'm just reviewing essentially. And that's repeated in front of us. All of the stuff we're describing now. Anyhow, on the first day, we talked about the appraisal foundation, but check this out specifically. What's the purpose within the foundation, the appraisal qualifications board? Highlight this. They establish minimum criteria to become an appraiser and examinations for certification. Appraisal standards board. Highlight this just in case you're tested on it. They set minimum standards for appraisals performed for federally related transactions, which we can't provide estimates of value for. We already talked about that. The bank is the one that assigns the appraiser. You don't get to choose because it would be yes, but it would be a conflict.
You found your offer by A.
Because you have a relationship, you might have a connection, and there might be influence on what they value your property at. So you don't know who that party is. The lender will assign it. You pay for it.
What, oh, the inspector, you choose.
The inspector you choose because they're looking out for you, right? You want to have that connection. Tell me everything that's wrong. Yeah. I just used him today. Yeah. His name is Anthony. He's with Carpenter Home Inspections. I use him for all my properties. He's a good guy. On page 363, state certified appraisers. There's two types of appraisers that exist. Residential, which estimate the value of what type of property? Residential property. And then general, for any type.
But not residential.
Any type. Federally related transactions. We already know what this is, right? It's a real estate related financial transaction. You'll see it right here. It's on line 13. It just confirms what we already know. We talked about this previously. I'm just confirming, so you can highlight if you want, but we already saw it. The rules that appraisers must follow when providing services. It's called the USPAP. We saw that previously as well. Yeah, the USPAP or USPAP. Remember CMAs and BPOs? Comparative market analysis. We're going to learn something similar today. Let's go to something new. Let's talk about something new on page 364. Some terminology associated with appraising. And a lot of us were guilty of using these terms interchangeably because we think it means the same thing. What's the cost of that? What's the price? What's the value? How much did you pay? But they have their own meaning. We need to know the difference. You could be tested on it. You could be tested on this. So what is cost? Cost is the expense to do what?
Create.
To create a good or service. You'll see create right next to it, right? Price is what is paid for a good or service. The amount paid for a good or service. See paid. And value is what it's worth. But I like to say it's the power of what it could be exchanged for. It's the power of what it could be exchanged for. Cost is the expense to create a good or service. Let me give you an example of this. You tell me what you think. Typical state exam question. A house was constructed for $500,000. What is that? Cost, price, or value? Cost. The expense to create. It appraised for $700,000.
Value.
Value. Who determines value?
Appraisers.
An appraiser, right? It's the appraised amount. What you can get for it in the market. And it sold for $600,000. Price. Perfect. Let's talk about types of value that you should be aware of. Assessed value. Didn't we see this in Unit 18? For tax purposes, every year, a county property appraiser determines this. Insurance value means if your property were to be vandalized, destroyed by natural disaster, catastrophe. Exactly. How much will insurance cover, reimburse, to repair or replace, right? Probably as the least amount possible. Go to page 365. Like, do you see what happened in the Pacific Palisades in California? That's what I'm talking about. Pacific Palisades with the fire. They took away fire coverage from all of those homeowners in California right before the fire hit. Just
Think
like
so.
they're removing hurricane coverage here in Florida before hurricanes hit. It's profits. Fire watch in Orlando? Very interesting. I mean, it's Florida is so humid. I mean, how's that?
You put Miami to the
Sketchy.
If there's fires that start in Florida, wildfires,
Something's going on.
even if there's a drought, it's so humid.
How do you call it?
Ash,
Yes.
you sure that wasn't pollen? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I mean, it's like, it's interesting. Climate is changing. Also, the polarity of the Earth is shifting. Did you know this? So, did you know this? Well, the Schumann resonance, you didn't feel that?
So you what? Seriously?
What?
Schumann?
You know about it? Okay.
Talk about that.
I'm so into all of that stuff. I can have a conversation. Listen, put me on Joe Rogan. I'll talk all day. Anyhow, maybe even Alex Jones. No, I'm just kidding. What we see next? You obviously highlighted this investment value. This investment value is really hard to nail down because it's based on the investor's financial goals. Every investor has their own financial goals, right? I know investors that are willing to pay more and investors that want to pay less for a property. Why would an investor want to pay more? What if they're up against a 1031 exchange? Do you remember this? Where they have to use all of their profit to buy the next property and they're up against a deadline. And they find a property that's it's the perfect property, but it's less than all of the profit, but they have to roll all of it into the next property. They say, hey, listen, I'll be willing to pay 20% more than what you're asking for the property, just so they can throw all of their profit into the next one. Yes, of course. I've gotten beat by other investors for a property because they were willing to pay drastically more than what they were asking because they're up against a 1031 exchange and that's the property that they needed, right? They wanted it, but then I get kicked out of the deal because I want to get a good deal on it. I'm not in the same situation. Investment value is according to the investor. Liquidation value is what you can sell it for rapidly without loss of capital. It's like a forced or a rapid sale is how they describe it. Going concern value, we talked about this already in Unit 17. It's the value of a business that's established versus the value of a business that has yet to be established. Like a new business versus one that's been around and has a following and a system. Salvage value means if your property were to be completely destroyed, what's the value of scrap materials that can be, raw materials that could be salvaged? But the most important value of all that has its own section, starts with an M, it's what? Market value.
Market value.
That's the whole purpose of this unit. I will show you 3 methods in this unit on how to calculate market value for a buyer seller you're working with. I'll show you how to estimate the value of real property. This is so important to your success as a real estate professional. So let's talk about what market value is, understanding the definition. It's the most probable price a property should bring in an open and competitive market. Meaning it's not like a exclusive sale, like only a few people get to see it. No, it's an open and competitive market. Under all conditions requisite to a fair sale, meaning nobody is desperate. If somebody is desperate in the transaction, could that jeopardize what that property is sold for? And what it is truly valued at? Of course. Exactly. And then they have to be acting, buyer and seller have to be equally what? Knowledgeable in the transaction. If one party is more knowledgeable, could that jeopardize what that property is sold for and what it's actually worth? Yes? If one party is more knowledgeable than the other. Imagine if the seller is more knowledgeable than the buyer, They could take advantage of that and overprice that property, sell it because they're just a great salesperson versus the opposite. And assuming the price is not affected by any drastic change in our market, they describe it as undue stimulus. Like what happened in 2008, unforeseen. We didn't know that was going to happen. So assuming if the market is stable, it's an open competitive market, the buyer and the seller are equally knowledgeable, and it's a fair sale, nobody's desperate, we can calculate, I'll show you with these methods, market value of any property. That's the whole purpose of today's session. So it's a really good session today, and we need to understand how valuable it is for us as a real estate agent. If you're working with the seller, you need to know what to list the property for, right? And then also working with the buyer that wants to submit an offer, you need to know what a fair offer is on that property. You got to figure out what it's worth. That's why it's so important. Characteristics of value. In order for anything to have value, it has to have at least one of these characteristics. It forms the acronym what? DUST. If you go to the next page, check it out. It breaks it down for us. DUST? No, this is the first time we've seen it. Does the good or service have a desire or need to it? Is that going to dictate value? Yes, of course. Utility means, is the good or service useful, or does it fill somebody's need? Is that going to dictate value? Scarcity is the availability of the good or service. Is there a lot of it available, or is it scarce? That's going to dictate value as well, right? Like a can of Coca-Cola, you remember? Supply and demand. And lastly, how easily the good or service can be transferred, conveyed from one company or individual to another. Of course. What about a property that has a clear title and a property that has title defects? Which one's easier to transfer? So that has value to it because it's easier to transfer. Now, I want us to talk about the basis for all three approaches that we're going to learn about today. We call these estimates of value that we're going to learn in today's session, the three that we're going to encounter, we call them approaches to estimating real property value. And there's one thing in common to all three approaches. It's called the principle of substitution. What's the common theme? The common theme is this. If that property across the street that looks like mine sold for X amount of dollars, then I should get X amount of dollars for my property. That's the theme. That's you're substituting value. You understand what that means? You're substituting value. So all three methods that we're going to learn about use market data of surrounding properties that have recently sold that look like yours. And based on that property that looks like mine, it recently sold for X amount of dollars, I should get around X amount of dollars for my property. And we'll see it with these examples that we're going to describe in just a moment. I'm going to go through them. I'll talk about it. We're almost there. Highest and best use. I'm going to be brief here. When you're working with investors, can you provide consulting services once you get licensed and you're active? Can you charge for that service? Yeah, an investor might ask you your opinion of a particular property. They say, hey, listen, I have this piece of land. It's in Dr. Phillips. We're in Dr. Phillips right now. What do you think is the most profitable thing that I can do with that piece of land? And then you could do market research. What is that community lacking? What is it zoned for? What could it be rezoned for? Maybe the ideal investment for their property is to turn it into a parking garage. But that's based on research, and you can charge for this research. In other words, what are you determining for the investor? The highest and best use for the property. This is big money. How do I know? Well, Chick-fil-A doesn't just open up Chick-fil-A anywhere. McDonald's, Starbucks doesn't just open up anywhere. They pay real estate agents big bucks for this. What's the best use for this property? Well, I don't see any Chick-fil-A's in a 20-mile radius. Probably like Chick-fil-A or one of these franchises would be best here. You could reach out to them and see if they're interested in the property. You know? Well, yeah, the war between CVS and Walgreens. Walgreens is closing down stores like crazy. Did you see that? They are.
Yeah, I heard that.
I mean, just in general. Walgreens closing down a lot of stores. Everybody's closing down a lot of stores. What's the latest victim? Big Lots, Party City. Hey, Party City.
You might call us a
Party
bunch of
City was clutch. Party City was clutch. Okay. You know, like to go into a store and just get what you need for a quick party last minute. It's clutch. But then now, you know, if you get it online, hopefully they have Prime.
In public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Increasing and decreasing returns. Let's talk about some terminology, specifically on line 7. It's in bold. What's the term? Let me read it out to you so you understand what this terminology is. Over improvement exists when an owner invests more money into the structure than the owner can reasonably expect to recapture when they sell it. People do it all the time because people add things to the property that they like for themselves, but has nothing to do with adding value or appeal. Well, what do you think is the most common example of an over improvement for a property in Florida?
Oh,
You said it, a swimming pool. Because it
building a
always
pool.
costs more to construct the pool than what you get in added value. You get value, you get added value, but not as much as it costs to construct, is what I'm saying. You're over improving. It's a
Yeah.
leisure item. It's a luxury, but it's not going to drastically increase the value of your property. Now, could it make the property more desirable? If you're
Yes.
your property is the only one in the subdivision that doesn't have a pool? Biggest pool. For instance, I have a friend that spent over $250,000 on their swimming pool. You think they're going to get their $250,000 in added value? Couple million.
Never.
Couple million for the house, but $250,000 for the pool. Now he had waterfalls, he had this and that, but I mean that's a lot. I live by a rule of thumb because I used to have my appraiser's license. Rule of thumb is anywhere from 50, 60% of what you spent to construct the pool is what you should get back in value. So it's always going to cost more. It's like a vehicle, brand new vehicle. You drive off the lot, you lose value, right? Now let's move down. We can make vehicles here. I'm an America First guy, so. Well, I mean, American made. My Tesla's made in America.
It is?
Teslas are made in America. They did. Well, not because of tariffs.
So how much?
Yes. How much is a Mercedes about to cost? Well, it's retaliatory. Listen, all these countries, they put the same amount of tariffs on us. We're just returning the favor. So we'll see what happens. Listen, Honda already committed to making a factory in, I think, Ohio or one of those states. So it's going to happen. That's Japan.
Americans make them, I'm telling you. They gonna start blowing up stuff.
I mean, we're talking about Honda.
Don't have to tech. The robots and all that.
We have the tech. We have all the tech. Look up Tesla factory and see how they manufacture. We have all of it. We converted into this nation that brought in all of our goods. That when you manufacture your own, you become a superpower. This is what China has proven. Okay, not to get political on you, but China, it was China. It was like nothing. Okay, we this agreement with them. We brought all our manufacturing over there because labor is cheap. And they became a superpower because they controlled manufacturing. That's where you lead. Exactly. We need made in America, and it's going to change things, right? And ideology is going to change here because people don't want to work factory jobs because it's not cool. But if you look way back when, right? People used to be able to support their whole family, put their kids through college, have a beautiful life, retire with a manufacturing company, with a factory and so forth. Coal miners and all this stuff. We got to bring it back. And we have the ability to bring it back. Like I said, I'm an America First guy. So I think we're on the right track. I don't agree with some things, but for the most part, we're on the right track. Anyhow, assemblage. Assemblage is when you combine multiple lots into one lot and you sell it as one whole. That's your assembling. Now, something interesting. If you assemble those lots and now it's worth more money, the added value is called what? Plottage. If it's worth more when you combine them, assemble them, it's called plottage. You have to do this with the city or county, and you gotta make it under one parcel ID, one address. But yes, it is possible. Progression and regression. Progression is when you have an ugly house in the middle of a beautiful neighborhood.
Like they built this beautiful $1 million house, and everybody else is like 350. Like,
Well, that's the opposite. That's regression. That's when you have a beautiful house in the middle of an ugly neighborhood. Surrounding properties would decrease the value of yours. Some people might be ahead of their time. They're thinking, okay, I know this is an up and coming area. I'm going to be the first to build a McMansion. I'm going to tear down that tiny Florida house. I'm going to put a McMansion in its place. And then they wait it out.
they got time. They're not trying to sell it. They got already. And that's what I think too. Like you decrease your chances of getting robbed.
And get robbed, sure. Okay. This is what I really wanted to get to in this unit. Here are the 3 approaches to estimating real property value that we're going to learn in today's session. This is what the unit is all about. These 3 things, these 3 approaches, these 3 methods. So you see something called the sales comparison approach, or called the sales method, the cost depreciation approach, or the cost method, and the income capitalization approach, or the income method. I'm going to show you. So sales comparison. Sales comparison is something we already talked about. Do you remember this CMA? Comparative market analysis? You have a subject property. You're trying to figure out the value of that subject property. So what do? You do research in the surrounding area. And you look for at least how many recent sales? 3 of similar properties. Size, quality, right? And when I say recent sales, within the past how many months? No more than 6, but really, you should try to get as close as you can get to the current date as possible. If one sold 6 months ago, the other one sold 3 months ago, I would go with the one that sold 3 because it's more accurate that way, right? You have a better understanding. You have your pulse on what the market looks like now. And I said at least 3. You're looking for at least 3 recent sales. The more the merrier, the more accurate. But at least 3. That's the rule. And within how much of a radius of the subject property? 1 mile. But my recommendation to you when you start practicing, stay within the same community. Because you know that subdivision across the street, even though it's in a mile radius, it looks completely different from yours. And just because it's sold for more money, well, yeah, it's in that different subdivision. Stay within your same community, and you have a more accurate estimate of value. The MLS. The MLS. You can refine, you can say sold as a status, and you can dictate within how many days. And you can see pending. You can click the status sold, click the status pending. You can click, you can search within a radius. You can search criteria, 3-bedroom, 2-bath that have recently sold, square footage, everything.
So let's say none have sold in the last 2 years in the neighborhood.
It's going to be very difficult to estimate the value. If you don't feel confident, then you could. It's going to be difficult for them too.
So that's rare.
Telling us because we don't have experience, just use the community.
Stay within the same community, the same subdivision. Everyone. I'm telling you personal recommendation. If you want an accurate estimate of value, stay within the same subdivision. Same community. Sometimes it's not in a subdivision, right? Okay, here's the thing. To understand how this method works, you found 3 recent sales. But those 3 properties you found that recently sold don't look identical to yours. They have their own features, right? One might have a pool, one might have, a guest bedroom or like a bonus room or something like this. The features are going to be a little bit different, right? So how do you calculate the value of your property, your subject property, based on these properties that recently sold that look different from yours? We have to do something called the adjustment process. Do you see the adjustment process? It's right here. Remember CBS, like the television network, and CIA, like those alphabet boys. Okay? Central Intelligence Agency. So this is what you do. You never change the subject property because that's the one you're trying to figure out the value of. But you have to adjust the comparable properties that you found, recent sales. If the comparable property is better than the subject property, you must what? You got to subtract to make it match your subject. You'll see how this works. I'm going to give you an example. Just remember this for now. If the comparable property is inferior, you must what? Add. Let me show you how that works. Take out this handout that says sales comparison approach across the top. Let's get into it. Looks like this. I made an example for you guys. I made an example so you can see how it works. This should be in front of us. Sales comparison approach, also known as the sales method. Have your calculator handy. Have your calculator handy. This should be easy for you, but we're going to go through it together. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. I'm pretty sure you'll get the hang of it with the first property that we're going to use as an example. So take out this handout, sales comparison approach.
I think I already got by reading the part.
All right. I made it up. This is just a what? Example. On your exam, they're going to give you this information that I provided as a example. Okay. So we have a subject property that we're trying to figure out the value of. That's going to be our goal at the end of this. Figure out the value of the subject property. Our subject property, and they'll share in the question the features. I made it up. I said it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, has a pool, and 1,800 square feet. I made it up. It's just because the question I always get at the end of this, after I explain all of it, is, so how did you get that information? I made it up. Okay? It's just an example. Now, you might be curious as to how you get the information in real life, and I can share that with you. But hold off on that question for just a moment. Just bear with me. I'll show you what's up here and in front of you on your handouts. After I give you these features of the subject property, just like the state exam in the question, they'll tell you the value for each feature. You see the value assigned? Yeah, $48,000 per bedroom, $26,000 per full bathroom, $26,000 for the value of a pool, and a certain value per square foot. But do we know the value of the ultimate value of this property? No, that's the whole purpose of this method. I'm going to show you how to get that. Now that we understand, we have this knowledge of the subject property and its features, we're going to focus on the comparables. And we're looking for at least how many comparables? Exactly, at least 3 recent sales. We call them comps for short, just so you're not confused. But they each have their own features. So what's our first step when we're trying to figure out the value of the subject property? We have to It's the adjustment process. Do you remember CBS and CIA?
Yeah.
Okay, let me show you how that works. You'll get the hang of it from the first property that we're going to adjust. Comparable number one. This is a recent sale that we found. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Is that the same?
Yes.
Do we have to
Yes.
change anything?
Yes.
No,
No.
we don't have to change a thing. We can leave it as is because it's identical. We're only adjusting what's different.
Mhm.
This one has a pool. Does our subject have a pool?
Yes.
Do we have to change anything? No.
No.
But what about the square footage? Is that the same? The square footage is different. Let me ask you a question. Yes, exactly. Okay, you got it. Is it better or inferior to the subject property? It's inferior. It's less than.
We have
So
to subtract.
CIA, if the comparable is inferior, you must what? Add. CIA. Comparable inferior, you add. Go back to your textbook, you'll see it. But how much square feet are we adding to make it match?
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
You're gonna add
200
200
square
square
feet.
foot. Okay.
Let me ask you a question though. Because I need to ask you a real quick question. If you add 200 square feet to any property, is that going to increase value? So if it had 200 square feet more, should it have sold for more?
Yeah.
It
I
recently
believe so.
sold for how much? 303, but
303.
that was with 200 square feet less. So if we add 200 square feet more, it should have sold for more than 303. And that's why we need the value for each feature, because this is the math. 200 is what we're adding, right? But every
Right.
square foot is how much in value?
175.
175 multiply.
35.
Exactly. 200 times 175. This property, if it had 200 square feet more, it should have sold for how much more? $35,000 more. Do you understand how we got that number?
So it would have been 330.
Yes.
Okay. So we're adding $35,000 for the difference in square feet. And that's the only feature that we had to adjust. And what should it have sold for if it matched our subject property completely? Do the math here. It takes 303 and add 35,000. You got 338,000. You see the adjusted sale price? You already got the hang of it, right? Let's do the same with comparable number 2. You have a question? Did you have a question? Oh, did you figure it out? Okay. 3-bedroom. Is that the same? No change there. 2.5 bathroom. Is that the same? It's different. So is it better or inferior now? It's better by
better.
a half a bathroom more. So CBS, if the comparable is better, which it is, you must what?
Subtract.
Subtract. And we're subtracting
13,000.
1/2 bath, right? We're going to do the math down here, but I'm just identifying what we're adjusting. We are going to subtract 1/2 bath thus far. Do you understand? Any questions? Okay. This one, on your exam, they're going to give you all this information. They give you all of this information I'm providing. You just have to know what to do with it. That's what we're learning right now. What do you do with these numbers? What do you do with these features? So this one's missing a pool. Does our subject have a pool?
Yes.
So it's inferior now. We have to what? Add to make it match.
Add. Mhm.
We have to add a pool to make it match. We add a pool. We add a pool, right? And no problem. I'm just assuming you're helping him out in Portuguese instead of cursing at him. All right, so 2,100 square feet, is that the same? It's different. Remember, our subject has 1,800. So is it better or inferior? It's better. So CBS, you must
Subtract.
subtract. How much square feet are we subtracting to make it match?
300.
We're subtracting 300 square
300
feet.
square feet.
Now, look, these are all the features we're going to adjust. Let's do the math here. Look what it recently sold for. But that was with all the features before we adjust, right? Let's go ahead and adjust and see if it matched our subject property completely. What should it have sold for? We're going to subtract 1/2 bathroom to start with. We're going to subtract $13,000 for the half bath, correct? That's the first feature we're adjusting. Okay, we have to add a pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is 26,000?
5,000.
25,000. Thank you.
25.
For the difference in pool. And we're subtracting 300 square feet in value. So take 300 and multiply it by how much per square foot?
175.
Do that math.
52,500.
We're subtracting 52,500 for the difference in square feet. So take that sale price. Yes. CBS, CIA. If the comparable is better, you subtract CBS. CIA, if the comparable is inferior, you add CIA. Do the math. Take 395, subtract, add, subtract, and tell me what the adjusted sale price, what it should have sold for if it matched our subject. 350 for 500. That's our adjusted sale price. Thank you. Now, move on to comparable number 3. Guess what? Maybe this is the only other recent sale we could find. And I know it's a quite a bit different, but we could use it. We just have to adjust a little bit more. Yes, they do this. When I had my appraiser's license, we had to do this all the time. Now, 4 bedroom, 3 bath. Is that the same? Okay,
Nope.
how many bedrooms are we subtracting to make it match?
One
We
more bedroom.
subtract
bedroom.
1 bath, right? And then, I'm sorry, bedrooms. Sorry. What am I talking about? Bedrooms. You know what? We're doing the same, but subtracting 1 bedrooms. And we're subtracting how many bathrooms to make it match? Subtracting
One.
1 full bath, exactly. It has a pool, no change. But what about the square footage?
Oof.
Yes.
Subtract
How much are we
850.
subtracting to make it match?
850.
850.
We're subtracting 850 square feet to make it match. Exactly. Take 850 and multiply by how much per square foot? 175. Tell me.
175.
Let's do the math. Let's do the math down here. First of all, let's subtract 1 bedroom. 48,000. You already got the hang of it, right? We're subtracting 1 bathroom, which is what? 26,000. For the
26.
difference in bathroom. And we're subtracting 850 square feet.
148.75. Oh,
Yeah, we're
sorry.
subtracting 148,750. Is that what you said? For the
750.
difference
Yeah.
Yeah.
in square feet.
Yeah.
So take this sale price, subtract, and tell me what the adjusted amount is. What is it, like 316 something?
What is
3.
it's 539,000?
Yeah, 539,000. Subtract.
Okay.
317. Wait.
16.
Is that right? 316,250. So check it out. Look, I got the same.
316.
What do you think we?
316,250.
Yes, correct.
Yes, right.
What do you think we do with those 3 amounts now that we've adjusted? Thank you.
The average.
Get the average of all 3. Do you remember from school how to calculate the average of 3 numbers?
Add them all together and divide by however many you have.
And that's exactly what I did here. Look on the left. Do you see at the bottom? We take it, these three amounts. We add them together. And you get 1,008,000. 750. Is it 1,008,000 and 750? You
Yeah.
add those three amounts together. So you take those adjusted comparable amounts, you get the sum. And if you remember from school, when you're calculating the average of three numbers, you add them together and then divide by the number of figures that you added together. How many figures did you add together?
3.
If you added 3, you divide by 3. And when you do the math, we'll get the estimated value of the subject property of how much.
336,250.
336.
And this would be your result.
That's you get my grade.
Yeah.
Now check this out. Look, you might be wondering, let me give you an example real quick. In real life, you're thinking, how do I figure out the value of a pool? Because I made up the value of a pool, right? But in real life, how would you figure it out? It's once again by comparing properties that have recently sold. Well, I'll give you an example and you can tell me what you think about it. 2 properties recently sold, 2 properties. They're identical except for one feature. One has a pool, one does not have a pool. You've seen those new construction houses, they look identical. The floor plan is exactly the same. They're cookie cutter, right? But one has a pool, one doesn't. One sold, the one without a pool sold for 200. The one with a pool sold for 225. How much is a pool worth? 25,000. So that's how you'd figure it out in real life. I'm just giving you a heads up on that. But check this out. Look, this is the amount we would present. This is the amount we would present to our sellers or buyers that we're working with that ask us for this information. If we're submitting an offer, you find out that, hey, listen, about $336,000 is a fair offer. It's what that property is worth, right? Or if you're listing a property, maybe we find out, this is important, you should hear this. You get this amount as the estimated value, but you're working with the seller to list their property. I might tell them, even though we got 336, let's list it for 349. Because you know how buyers are, they always want to get a good deal. So they always offer or negotiate a little bit what? Less. So you know that this is your bottom number. You see how it works? It's a sales tactic. I give a little buffer for negotiation. Even though I know, we know that the property is worth this amount.
So you want to get what it's.
I like to give a little wiggle room.
You can't go more than 50.
Now check this out. Here's the thing. There is an add-on to this to make your estimate more accurate. It's called reconciliation. I want you to pull that up. It says reconciliation across the top. Reconciliation, positive attitude here. Reconciliation of value, positive attitude. Trust me. There's studies that have been done about this. I'm serious.
Just like 1 hour to find a paper though.
Look for the one that says reconciliation across the top.
I don't think it's possible to remember all of it.
You just
Michael.
said, I remember it. And you said it's not possible for you to remember it.
No different than you. No.
Got a study.
Michael.
He wasn't a teacher when he passed the test.
Order. Al Green, I'm going to have to kick you out. All right, so here we go. What is the whole purpose of reconciliation? If you know what accounting, have you ever heard of reconciliation in accounting? You're reconciling bank accounts. You're checking for errors. You're checking for accuracy. That's what this means in accounting. But guess what? It's the same thing when you're estimating the value. Let me read this out. it provides a more accurate estimate by identifying which comparables have the greatest weight on the value of the subject property. You're probably wondering, okay, Michael, what are weights? I need you to hear this. Weights are determined by the estimator. That is soon to be all of you. Once you get your real estate license, you will be the estimator based on how similar the comparable is to your subject property. And note, you got to know this note. The sum of all three weights that you assign must equal what? 100%. Let me show you something that we've already seen. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. Check this out. You see in this column, it says comparable what? Adjusted sale price.
Adjusted sales price.
Didn't we just go through that on the previous example, that handout? Didn't we adjust the sale price for each one of the comparables? So the work is already done here. Let's plug in the same information we found out from the previous handout. For the first comparable, what was the adjusted sale price? 300
38,000.
and 38,000. For the next one,
354,000.
354,500. And then for the third, it was 316,250, correct? I'm going to show you. This is reconciliation of value. To provide a more accurate, I know.
Give us the reconciliation value.
Reconcile value. I'm going to show you. Check this out. It's not difficult. Actually, this is one of the easiest math questions you can get. If you get this on your exam, you should be happy. You should be happy. I'll show you. We take these comparable adjusted sale prices and we multiply it by the weight assigned. So let me explain once again what weights are. Weights are determined by you, the estimator, based on how similar the comparable property is to your subject property. And the sum of all three weights must equal how much percent? So you have 100% to work with. I'll show you how you can figure it out. Out of those three comparables from the previous handout, which one was the most similar to the subject property? Which one do we have to change the least? 1, 2, or 3? Which one do we have to change the least? One.
First.
One was the most similar, right? So let me ask you a question. Here's a little bit of logic. The subject property. Maybe you need to hear this again. Let me repeat it. Out of those three comparables, those recent sales, which one was the most similar to the subject property? 1, 2, or 3? One. So with that logic known, I need you to hear this. This is important. Otherwise, you're going to be confused. Knowing that number 1 was the most similar, shouldn't we rely on comparable number 1 more so than the other two to figure out the value of the subject property?
Yes.
If it's the most similar, we should say, well, it should be more like this property, what this property sold for than the other two.
Yes.
And that's why we're going to assign it the highest weight. Why is it called weight? Because it has the greatest weight on the value for the subject property. The greatest weight on value. And we're going to make it up. Out of the three comparables, remember, it must equal how much percent? We're going to assign it the highest out of all three. I'm going to make it up. Let's say 60%. Out of these remaining two comparables, which one was the most similar?
The third.
Out of 2 and 3, which one do we have to change the least? Which one was the most similar?
The second.
It's number 2.
The second.
I would say number 2. Because remember, 850 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, it was different, right?
Right.
A lot different. Number 3 was a lot different. Number 2 was more similar. So we're going to assign it the second highest weight. Let's say 35%. I'm making it up. In real life, you're going to make it up. On your exam, they're going to give it to you. You just have to know what to do with it. And what's the only other percentage we can assign to number 3? 5. So now what do? Look,
Max.
What do you do?
Multiply it. Multiply.
Tell me 60% of this. Tell me what you get.
Mhm.
The first one's 202. Second one is 124.
Okay. What did you get for the first?
202,800.
800. And then the next? And
124,075.
75?
Yeah.
15,800. 13.
15,812. Yeah.
15,000. Yeah.
0.5.
And 50 cents? Okay.
Yeah.
No. No, it's 15,000. You did 0.5?
5%. It's 0.05. Okay. So what do you do with these three amounts? Add those three amounts together, guys. Add them together. Add these three amounts together and tell me what you get as the reconciled sum of value.
Mm.
What'd you get? 300 and something.
342,687.50.
Everybody got that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the whole point of this? Well, we're giving this property more weight on what the property should be valued at than the rest because it's more similar than the rest. And that gives us a more accurate estimate of value. More accurate. So here's the thing. We weren't off by much. The previous estimate of value was what? 336,000? Something like that? And we figured out after we reconcile, we're only off by like $6,000, $6,000. Our first estimate of value was pretty darn accurate, correct? So you might not have to do this in real life. But if you encounter this on your exam, you should be ecstatic. Why? Because on your exam, this is what they're going to give you. You should pay attention to this. On your exam, they're going to give you the adjusted sale price for each of these comparables. They're going to give you 3, and they're going to give you the weight for each one. All you have to do is do what? Multiply and add. It's as simple as that.
Consolidation value.
Multiply and add. Question.
Tell you which weight belongs to which.
Of course. Yeah, they will. Worst case scenario, they might give you 2 of the weights and they'll leave out the last one. But you already know what that is because all 3 have to equal what? Bingo.
100.
All right. Let's take a quick break.
Can I get all these?
Yes, I put them right here. Of course.
What time do we come back? I got it.
10 minutes.
Are they still giving like high yields interest on the Apple Card? Yeah? Okay. It was like 5% or something like that?
But that's only if you don't pay.
We can use a firm.
New application request.
Yeah, you do that.
Yeah.
Sumper.
I confirmed the whole trip. I confirmed the whole vacation.
Update your listing.
Interest is gonna be like $200.
Nathaniel. Match.
I confirmed the whole vacation.
It's a what?
No, but some of the different ones like Apple Pay, Klarna.
Oh, I don't use the different one.
Those ones, they will do it without no interest.
Sizzle. Yeah, they will, yeah.
So I'm like, it's like one.
Affirmed as interest?
I think
Yeah, they do.
sometimes.
On some places.
It's a-
Or Apple Pay, I just use like.
One of them. Klarna and Apple Pay give you an option without interest, but it's like. every
Yes,
2
but it
weeks.
does say, yeah.
And then you can, if you.
And if
do
you
like
go
that,
longer, then it's the
that's-
interest
yeah.
added.
But you get like $10, it just depends on how.
Yeah, you definitely need it. No, just for real estate.
No, the computer's gonna.
I mean, my mom does everything
Please.
on her phone. Like, she'll do all her contacts on her phone, like. everything.
I mean, cause I have an iPad Pro, but. I need it.
I can sell her that. I'm like, you can work. Yeah, you can get a keyboard on your iPad. That's like,
But I wanted to know if that was gonna work for the test. If you go
I
to
think
the
it's the,
hardware.
I think it's the browser, like, you Google Chrome versus.
3 hours.
saying, I'm trying to refrain from you having to just
go
Or
in.
you can like use.
You gotta
one of
go-
our
you gotta get
computers.
7 a.m.
Just to be sure, cause we're not planning on taking the same time. You can use my computer. It's not. It's
All right, page 373.
Maybe it's your first flow, and that's like your.
What page?
Page 373. At the bottom, we see the second method. It's called the cost approach or the cost depreciation approach. Why is it different from the sales comparison approach? We're going to include depreciation in our calculation. That's why it's called the cost depreciation approach. So depreciation is loss in what? Value. Caused by certain factors, right? Wear and tear, poor design, the structure, surroundings. We'll see that in just a moment. And because it's existed for a certain time period, that depreciation is going to cause loss of value, and that's going to adjust what that property is actually worth. We'll see how that factors in, but we're going to begin on page 374. Step number 1 of this approach is to estimate the reproduction cost. What is reproduction cost? It's the cost to reproduce a structure using the same exact materials, creating an exact duplicate of the structure. I'll give you an example of this in just a moment. I just want you to understand what reproduction cost is. I'll show you how to figure that out as well. Well, you're going to be tested on replacement cost. Replacement cost starts on line 3. How is it different? Replacement cost is the cost to reproduce a structure, but using modern, available, and updated materials. So it's a little bit different. Reproduction is using the same exact materials. Replacement is using modern, available, and updated materials. You'll see the formula here, but you also have a handout for this, and I'll show you how it works. I break it down, make it easy for you. It's the one that says cost depreciation approach across the top. I want you to highlight this, cost depreciation approach, yeah. I want you to highlight this just so you have the highlight class exam.
Which page? Please.
374, yes.
Thank
You'll be
you.
tested on this information for that class exam question.
We
We'll
can't
talk
see
about
your-
it. Oops, yeah, that would help if I
Thank-
share my screen, right?
Mhm.
So
Oh,
you missed this then. On the top of page 374. Top of page 374, lines 3 through 5, class exam question. Okay, and on that same page, figure 16.2, we'll see this information here for class exam question. Okay, bear with me. Bear with me, check this out. Step number two is to subtract the accrued depreciation, the total depreciation that has accumulated over the years. I'm going to show you how to get that number. You'll be surprised how we get this number. But depreciation, just so we're clear on this, is loss in what? Value. Caused by wear and tear, poor design, the structure, surroundings. Accrued depreciation is the total depreciation that has accumulated over the years. I just mentioned that to you. Depreciation, though, depreciation can be curable or what? Incurable, depending on how expensive. I'll come back to that as well. Curable means you can fix the problem, get your money back in added value. Incurable means it's too expensive, you're unable to recoup. But then we come across this. Look on line 18. Depreciation in a structure can be attributed to three major causes. Physical, which is wear and tear. Like for instance, the paint on the outside is chipping, it's faded. Is that curable or incurable? The paint on the outside, that's curable. You can easily fix that problem, just repaint it, and now it looks like a brand new house. I would say you're able to get your money back in added value. What about another type of wear and tear, such as the termites have completely destroyed the framing throughout the house. You have to replace all the framing. Probably incurable, because you could fix it, but are you able to get your money back in added value? No, because the buyer expects the house to have good framing. They're not going to pay more for the property because you replace the framing. They're going to pay what that property is worth. Too bad, so sad that termites destroyed it, but that's going to come out of your pocket. You have to fix it and you're not going to get your money back. Anyhow, functional obsolescence is poor design. You see that? I just saw this the other day. If you think it doesn't exist, it does. They're usually for older homes, but I've seen a 5-bedroom house with 1 bathroom.
Wow.
5-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. Is that curable or incurable? That poor design? Curable, because every new bathroom that you add is going to increase the value. Rather than selling it as a 5-1, you're better off selling it as a 5-2. Add another one, better selling it as a 5-3, right? Okay. Incurable. What about the house was constructed with no insulation in the walls?
Oh.
No insulation. Yeah, because what are you going to do? Rip out all the drywall, put up new insulation, put up new drywall, mud it, texture it, paint it. It's going to be too expensive. Or to get to a 3rd bedroom, you have to go through the 2nd bedroom. Have you ever seen that before? Yeah. By the way, over improvement is an example of poor design or functional obsolescence. Functional, it's not functional, bad design. And external has to do with the outside, the proximity. Do you have control over your neighbors and what they're doing with their property? What if the house is constructed next to a train track? Do you have control over this? Can you move the house? No. So it's always considered to be what? Incurable. And let me ask you a question. Let's see if you remember. What are you not allowed to include when calculating depreciation? Land. You're not allowed to include land. We're not including land when calculating depreciation because depreciation is on the structure, the wear and tear, poor design, everything that has to do with the structure. Okay, now we can turn to our handout. Now I can show you the handout. It's called Cost Depreciation Approach. This one's simple. Check this out. 4 basic steps. The first step, check this out. The first step is to calculate the reproduction what?
Cost.
In other words, what it takes to reproduce the structure as if it's what? Brand new. Let me make up an example. I'm going to make up a random example. Let's say you're trying to figure out the value of a warehouse. A warehouse. Industrial. This method or approach to estimating real property value is mainly used for commercial and industrial. Could it be used for other types of property? Yeah, but mainly this one is commercial industrial. Most of the time on your exam, they'll say reproduction cost is X amount of dollars. So do you have to look for it? Do you have to calculate it? No, they give it to you. But just in case you have to figure it out, this is an example, right? Can I show you? Worst case scenario? Here it is. Check it out. You take the structure size in square feet. Let's say it's a 20,000 square foot warehouse. And they'll tell you in the question, you get bids, estimates from local contractors. And you ask contractors, what would it take if I want to reproduce this warehouse as if it's brand new? And they're going to give you an estimate. Using the same exact materials, what would it take? What would you charge me per square foot to rebuild this warehouse? And they'll give it to you. They're in that business. They give estimates all the time. And you calculate the average of the price per square foot in real life, just in case. But they'll tell you in the question, of course. Let me make it up. Let's say it's $200 per square foot. That's the average price per square foot to reproduce the structure. $200 per square foot. So what would it take as a reproduction cost, as if it were brand new? It's $4 million, guys. $4 million to rebuild that warehouse as if it's brand new. And we're going to need this amount for step number 2 and step number 3. But let's focus on step number 2 now. What's step number 2? If I can get your attention real quick. Calculate the what? Accrued depreciation, which I already mentioned to you. What is accrued depreciation? It's the total depreciation that has accumulated over the years. I'll show you how to figure it out. It's interesting. I'll tell you that. Not hard, interesting. It's called the age-life method. Write this down. Age-life method. To calculate total depreciation that has accumulated over the years. And the reason why it's interesting is because it's so opinionated. It's odd for that reason. It's a weird way to figure out the depreciation. It's based on what you think the depreciation is on the property. Let me explain. You take the effective what? Age, which I explain it for you because the book doesn't do a good job of explaining it. I put it in parentheses. It's how old that property what? How old that structure, that building looks. So you're probably thinking, how do I figure that out? That's you standing in front of the building and say, I think it looks X amount of years old. And you would use that for the calculation. It's whatever you think. You see how opinionated it is?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in the exam, they're going to tell you. But this is how they disguise it. This is how they might try to trick you. They say the warehouse is actually 40 years old, but it only looks like it's 20 because of exceptional upkeep and maintenance. What are you going to use in your calculation?
20.
You're going to use 20. How old it looks. So it looks like it's 20 years. So we're not looking for actual, that's actual age is 40, but the effective age. Now, if they only give you the actual age, if they say it's 40 years and they don't give you anything else, you could use it. I'm just telling you a rule of thumb. But most of the time they'll say it looks 20, but it's actually 40. You're going to use the 20, right? And you divide it by how long you think it's going to what? We call that total economic life. And that's you. It's whatever you think. From the time it was constructed to the day it falls apart and crumbles. Warehouses, they could last decades, centuries, right? Let's make it up. Let's say you think the warehouse is going to last 200
years.
years. I'm making it up. It's just an example. But that would be the total economic life. Do the math. Take 20 and divide it by 200 and tell me what you get. Don't you get 0.1? 20 divided by 200. What is 0.1 as a percent?
10%.
0.1 is 10%, right?
Right.
What is that telling us?
10% of 4 million.
Based on how old you think it looks and how long you think it's going to last, you think the building has depreciated by 10%. That's what that 10% means. It's a depreciation amount. It's depreciated by 10%. But how do you figure out the dollar percentage? I'm sorry, the dollar amount of depreciation. You take that 10% and multiply it by 4 million. So you multiply by 4 million and it's 400,000. So the total depreciation on this structure, based on your opinion, is 400,000. You're losing 400,000 because of how old it looks and how long you think it's going to last. And what happens? Well, you subtract it. That's loss in value, so subtract it.
3.6
And what are you left
million.
with?
3,600,000.
3,600,000, right? But what we just calculated is depreciation on what? Depreciation on the what? On the structure. What do we not include in the calculation? The land, because we're not supposed to. So at the end, what do you simply do?
At the
What
land
does it
value.
say? You add the land. And they'll tell you in the question what the land is valued at. You just add it at the end. So you depreciate the structure and then you add the land, whatever they tell you in the question. Can we make it up? Can we say the land is worth $200,000? And now, what's the total property value?
3,800,000.
3.8 million. And that will be your answer.
Yeah, the land value.
I made it up. I said they'll tell you in the question. 200,000.
So if you.
You can sit here. Come sit here now. There's space.
Would write down step 1 through 4 for cost depreciation approved.
Well, most of the time, they'll give you the reproduction costs to save you because they don't want you to spend too long on these questions because they know you have to be efficient with your time. I mean, how many hours do you have to take the state exam?
3.
3.5 hours. And there's 100 questions. So do the math. Take 100 questions. Well, take 3.5 hours and divide it by 100 questions and see how many minutes you have each question, right? So you want to be efficient with your time. Now, here's the thing. Last estimate of value. This is the last one. It's called the income capitalization approach. This is the one. Income capitalization approach, or the income method. What was the...
The cost. Basically, like how should I study it to know what to write down?
What I put on the handout? You got to know these steps. I hate to be that blunt, but it's just, you have to memorize the steps. Is it useful in real life? Have I ever used a cost depreciation approach? No. Can I be honest with you? No. And here's the thing. So check it out. Look, even for commercial property,
Because you get a appraised.
I would still use the sales comparison approach. Mainly. I like to use the comparable square foot approach. So I'll figure out what's the value per square foot, and then I'll figure out what my square footage, and I'll just multiply. It never fails. Never failed me once. Never failed me. Income. Why is this different? This is extremely useful because a lot of you shared with me you want to invest. You still want to invest? This is how you figure out what the property is valued at based on the income the property is producing. So this is very attractive when you're working with investors and they need you to answer questions for them. I'm going to show you how to answer the questions that the investors will ask you. You got to know this if you want to thrive in that world, the investor world, or you want to do it for yourself, both. So check it out. Let's use the example. Oh, last exam question. Go to page 376. Page 376. Lock this in. Page 376. Just lock this in. Question 10. All right. I want us to move on. Go to page 378 at the bottom. Page 378 at the bottom. Do you see this example on line 25?
Yes.
I'm going to use this information to help us understand how this method works. Example. Suppose your client is considering construction of a 10-unit apartment building. You're estimating the value of vacant property zoned for apartments. Your survey of other apartment projects of similar size and quality in the area has revealed that each of the proposed new apartments could be competitive if you rented each one out for $665 per month. Where are those located, right? That's cheap. The survey also shows that an annual vacancy and collection loss rate of 10% is typical for the area. That's all we need for now. That's all we need. Let's plug it in. Our first step always in this approach is to get something called the PGI. What does PGI stand for? You got to know what PGI stands for. They might use PGI in the question.
Potential gross income.
Okay. In other words, in a perfect world, what's the most money that we can generate off of this 10-unit apartment building? Let's do the math. How many units are there? There's 10 units. Could be competitive if rented at how much per month? $665 per month. But let me ask you a question. Do investors want to know monthly income? No. Investors want to know what? Annual.
Year.
Multiply by what? 12. And tell me what you get. Yep, 665. Just like the example states. You get 79,800. That's our PGI, potential gross income. And I want you to add this on your handout, just so you don't get confused. Always calculate annually. Don't do a monthly calculation. You'll get it wrong. Investors want to know annual, not monthly. What do you do next? You subtract, look right here on the handout, you subtract your what? Vacancy and collection loss. They said you're going to lose how much percent annually because of vacancy and collection loss? They said 10%. What is vacancy? That means you don't have tenants occupying, paying you rent. Collection loss means you got tenants, but they're not what? They're not paying, and you're going to lose about 10% of your income annually because of it. That's what they say in the question or the example. Let's use it. So here's how you figure it out. The dollar amount that we're going to subtract. We take 79,800 and we multiply by 10%. And what amount are we going to subtract? 7,980. The next step would be to add other income. But let me ask you a question. In this example, did I read out that there was any other type of income that the property is generating? Did I say that there's something else that they're making money off of? No. So we're going to simply add how much? $0. But let me get your attention. What could be some additional income in a 10-unit apartment building? What could you charge more for? Concierge garbage pickup, reserved parking, reserved garages, storage. What about laundromat? What about vending machines? That could be additional income. But for this example, there's none. We're just going to add $0. You don't even have to touch it. And from that math, do the math. We subtract, add, we get an EGI, which stands for what? You got to know what EGI stands for. Effective gross income. Do the math. Tell me what you get. I got 71,820. You can check to see if that's correct. Look, 79,800 subtract 7,980. And that's what I got, 71,820. Did you get the same?
Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And if you look in your textbook, our next step, go to page 378 or 9? 9.
Right.
And we're going to subtract all relevant what? Expenses. What kind of expenses can you encounter per year? Taxes, insurance.
Insurance, management.
Look how much you're charging for management. What is that telling you? They hired a property. Thank you. Annual. And the total is what?
36,990.
36,990. Choose it. 36,000. I'll write it. 36,990. So what is that telling us? More than half of our effective gross income is gone because of expenses in the year. So you're left with less than half. How much are you left with?
34,830.
34,830. What have we just calculated?
Net
We just
operating
calculated
income.
NOI. Because do investors want to know, look up here, gross income? No, they want to know what type of income? Net. So how do you get from gross to net? You got to subtract all relevant expenses throughout the course of the year. Now you have an answer for an investor that wants to know what clean money they're actually going to put in their pocket at the end of the year for that 10-unit apartment building. That's one question you answer for them. About 35 grand, right? Clean money after paying expenses. But we're not done. Now that we have the income, which we need, we can figure out what that property's worth. That's this. It's something called the IRV formula. Do you see IRV? I equals R times V. Isn't it like a backwards ABC formula? And we're going to treat it as such. So let me show you. Let's plug in what we already know. What's the net operating income? We just calculated it.
34,
830.
830.
And what's our ultimate goal from using this method? Figure out the what for the property?
Value.
God bless you, the value. So what do we need to fill in? Remember, we need at least two of the variables to calculate the missing variable. So we need something called an overall capitalization rate. And yes, they call it cap rate for short in the business. I'll explain what that actually is and how useful that information is to answer another question that the investor might have. And they'll ask you what the cap rate is. You got to be prepared for it, understand what it actually means. So this is how you figure it out. You take what similar properties, remember we have a 10-unit apartment building. You look for other apartment buildings in the surrounding area that have recently sold, and you take what they were making as income in the year and you divide it by what they sold for recently, and you get a cap rate. I'll show you. Look, they did the work for us in the textbook. If you go to your textbook on the next page, they found 5 apartment complexes that have recently sold. Do you see A, B, C, D, and E? And what did they do? They took what those 5 apartment buildings were making clean money in the year, like what we just figured out for our property, and they divided it by what?
The sale price.
What they recently sold for. And that will give you the cap rate for all 5. How do you calculate the average of 5 numbers? You add them
By the what?
and you divide by the number of figures you added. So you added all 5, you got 0.5, and then you divide by 5, you get 0.1. 0.1 is the same thing as what percent? 10%. Let's use it.
10.
So we got a 10% cap rate. You might still be confused as to what the cap rate is, but I'm going to reveal that to you at the end. Let's use this for our example, 10% cap rate. Now we have everything we need to figure out the value, don't we? Do you remember ABC?
Mhm.
What are we trying to solve for? What do we need to isolate? We need to isolate the what?
The
The value. So what mathematical symbol separates the equation?
Equal sign.
If value is on the right side of the equation, what do you have to get rid of to isolate it? You have to get rid of the 10%. How do you get rid of it? You slide and divide. It works every single time, guys. So you take 34,830 and divide it by what percent?
10%.
10%. And you tell me what that 10-unit apartment building should be valued at.
348,300.
48,300. Look how much wonderful information you provided to the investor. You told that investor, hey, listen, you're going to make about $35,000 clean money in the year. I said about, right? You can give estimates. Based on that income and what other properties have sold for, you should expect to pay no more than about $350,000 for that 10-unit apartment building. But you still might be confused as to what the cap rate is. Let me reveal it to you now. As an investor, before you can start to make profit, what must you do first? Break what?
Even.
Break even, which is getting how much percent of your money back?
100%.
100%. That looks familiar, right? If you're capitalizing on this investment at a rate of how much percent per year? 10% year is our cap rate. It's our capitalization rate. How many, and it's an annual rate, right? How many years will it take you to break even? It will take you 10 years to break even. Okay? This is our cap rate. So look at all this wonderful information we provided to the investor. Do you think this is enough for them to make an informed decision?
They want to know.
Break even is getting 100% of your money back. So getting all $350,000 back. If you're getting a return on, a cap rate is a ROI. Have you heard of ROI? Return on your investment? You're getting a return on your investment at 10% per year. So after 10 years, you break what? You break even. All this wonderful information is what you pass along to the investors so they can make a decision if they want to buy it. Do you like this investment? Who's willing to wait 10 years to break even? Really? I know millions of investors that would be salivating over this deal. A 10% cap rate is golden. Investors now, with how much properties are selling for and how much income you can make, you're paying too much for the property. It's going to take you longer to break even. You're seeing cap rates at like 5-6%, and investors are taking it. So 5% cap rate, that's going to take you 20 years to break even, right? The more attractive.
Yeah.
All right. The higher the cap rate, the more attractive. All right. We're actually done. We're done with our session, which means we're done with the textbook. Clap it up for yourselves. All right. Here's the thing. I told you before you guys leave me, I'm going to go through that 5-step guide. So take out that 5-step guide. Let's go through it together. Yes. Yeah, I know.
So we already went over those without.
We didn't go through them.
No.
I included them just in case, but you're not going to see them on your state exam. They're in the textbook, but it's not relevant for your exam. I included it so you have it, so you feel like you're not missing anything. I'm serious.
Wait, which
It's
ones
not
are
gonna
green?
be on test.
Which ones
Which
are
tests? Like both tests?
Which ones are green?
You know what you're going to be tested on for the class exam.
Sorry?
You know what you're going to be tested on for the class exam.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Pages for the.
If we haven't gone through it, then no.
Hi,
If we haven't
Michael.
gone through it, then no.
Starting day one.
Michael,
Yes.
I just wanted to say with the fingerprint thing, one last bit of information is I went and did
Yes.
the fingerprints first and then immediately
Yes.
came home and did the application and everything went through just fine within the 3 days.
Yes.
Also, I don't have to wait 5 days.
No, you should wait at least 24 hours. That's the recommendation. They tell you it could take up to 5 days to process. That's what they say just because. But the rule of thumb, and you'll remember, I think I even included on this 5-step guide. The 5-step guide is wait at least 24 hours before you submit the application. And you should be fine. Now check this out.
Okay.
And I'll answer any questions that you have before we leave, okay? Just so you feel confident. But let's go through this 5-step guide because once again, we got to know next steps. Can you see my screen online?
Yes.
Okay. Step number 1, complete the pre-license course. Congratulations. You did it.
Thank you.
Well, you completed the hours is what I'm saying. Step number 2, submit fingerprints for your background check. Who's done it? All right, clap it up for yourselves. If
I
you
did the
haven't,
first
what are you waiting for? Okay. You know how to do it, right? Any questions
Yeah.
about fingerprints? So remember, you log into your user account, you see on the dashboard on your materials tab, you'll see fingerprinting for background. Click that,
Yeah.
pay for it, schedule it. And it's 105.
Yes.
Application. Who submitted their application? All right, clap it up for yourselves. All right. Wait at least 24 hours before you submit your application. The website, myfloridalicense.com. Here are the steps you follow. Do you see the exact steps I included? Man, I'm so nice. You go to the home screen. It tells you what tabs to select. All right. When you
Excuse me,
submit the app, create an account for your real estate application. They send you a temporary password. You remember we talked about it? Log
Yeah.
in, change your password, and then your application is going to be waiting there for you. You click it, open it up, answer the questions truthfully, submit it. It's that simple. Question online.
Yes. I would like to know if I can submit the application before the background check.
No. You do the
No.
fingerprints first, then the application.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Good. So it's a non-factor.
Okay.
It's 2 separate things. Yeah, the fingerprints you submit electronically, wait at least 24 hours, then do the application online, myfloridalicense.com. And once both have been approved, that application is valid for how long? 2 years. Now let's talk about the class exam, which you had questions about, right? The class exam. Where do you take your class exam? Online.
Online.
Through our website. Yes. Exactly. You'll have access Saturday morning. Anyhow. You have how many days access?
30 days
30 days access.
30 days.
Starting
from the
from
first
when?
day. From the first day of class.
From the first day
Day.
of class, which was what date?
2 weeks ago.
24th. So you have by
The
March
23rd.
23rd to wrap up everything with us, including making up any missed classes before you take your final. Yes.
Like the content, say a test. Can I redo it? A test as practice?
No, not the final exam. There's practice tests that we have on the exam prep. Yes. Yes. Show me.
What is the difference? There's no difference.
It's just click the top one. Yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa. Okay. There we go. All right, so check it out. Let's continue. If it goes past 30 days, March 23rd, and you don't take your test, you don't make up the missed days to make you eligible to take the test, what happens? You gotta take the class all over again. Don't let it happen to you, please. I don't need you to take class and pay tuition all over again. You have 30 days.
No, but we're making what you said.
Take the class all over again.
No, but like.
Se você não fizer a prova até 23 de
Oh,
março.
okay.
All right, how many hours do we give you? 3 hours.
3 hours.
Prepare mentally right now to keep your butt in that seat for the full 3 hours. If you finish early, what do? Go back and review. Yes, use the full time that we give you. Why not? You pay for it, right? Same thing for the state test, but we'll see that in just a moment. Once you click that start button, you gotta continue. Maximum, how many attempts?
2 attempts.
2 attempts. If you don't pass on your first attempt, what's your grade need to be on your first attempt?
70.
70% or higher. Then you have to wait, look up here, how many days to retest?
30 days.
30 days. And after you come back, your second attempt, what does your grade need to be?
75.
75% or higher.
How
If you
would
don't
that?
pass on your second attempt, then what must you do? Retake the class all over again. Don't let it happen to you. You can pass. You can get 100%. Now, you'll see right here. Course retake required after 2 attempts. Don't let it happen. Okay? A certificate, once you pass, is going to be automatically added to your user account. It's on your dashboard. And the certificate we issue is good for?
2 years.
You need to bring that with you. You need to bring that certificate with you, a copy of it, when you take your what exam? State exam. Yes. 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 Print it. Take it with you, along with 2 forms of signature identification.
Doesn't like.
Question. Did you have a question? Okay.
I have a question, Michael.
Yes, signature ID. Yes. Online, Bruno. Or Jose?
Yeah.
Who is it? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's so I know you said there's a 30-day waiting period between attempts, but if we only have 2 weeks until the 23rd, how would we go about that if we were to be in that predicament?
That erases. That erases.
Okay.
It supersedes.
Okay.
It overrides. So if you don't pass, we're talking about taking your first attempt within 30 days.
Got it.
But as long as you do it, let's just say worst case scenario, you don't pass. Then you have to wait 30 days to retest. You have up to a year for your second attempt, but please. And the advice I'm going to give you now is this. It should take you no longer than a week to prepare for the class exam. Class exam, Cameron Academy's exam. Do not wait till day 29, because we give you 30 days, right? Don't wait till day 29, the last day to take the class exam. You're doing yourself a disservice. And once you pass the class exam, it should take you no longer than 2 weeks to prepare for the state exam. Are you with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. You just
Go up there, start it.
online, yes, on your user
Oh
account.
my,
Yes,
there is the test.
bingo. For the state exam, of course, you have to schedule. Yeah. Yes. Question. Driver's license, passport, debit card with your signature on the back. The address has to be consistent on everything you've submitted thus far. The address you gave to us is going to be put on the certificate. It has to match your ID. It has to match the application and fingerprints. Everything's got to match.
Like I'm booked like in 20 days.
Just be consistent with the address for now, and then you can change it after you get the license. Okay?
Or and then the address, because I knew my ID is wrong.
Okay.
So then for the
Update your driver's license. Make sure it's consistent because now you use the address for fingerprints. You got to use that same address across the board. Okay, all right, fair enough. But your ID is just not updated. When you go to the testing site, they're going to look at your driver's license and then they're going to say certificate, driver's license, don't match. I'm sorry. So do it. You can do it online. The what?
The promo code?
For
She's booking her test right now. The official test. She's booking the state test.
the state
They
exam?
asked for a promo code.
I don't. I mean, the question is, why are you scheduling it right now?
She said she's doing it 3 weeks later from now.
Oh, okay, got you. So you're scheduling it in advance, knowing that you're going to take the class exam first. Okay. Because when you go to the testing site, they're going to ask you for our certificate.
Oh, so he's saying you gotta pass his before you get to take that, so you gotta make.
She can schedule it in advance.
But she still have the one valid.
I
for
still
last
have
time.
one valid.
Oh, okay. So check it out. State exam. Once your application and fingerprints have been approved, they're going to email you. Pearson VUE, the testing vendor. When your application and fingerprints have been approved, they're going to email and tell you, congratulations, you're approved. You're eligible to take your state exam. But who's going to email you? Pearson VUE. Do you see Pearson VUE here?
Mhm.
Pearson VUE. They're going to email you with a 9-digit code. That allows you to go on their website and make an account and schedule your state exam. And I give you steps. Here are the steps from the homepage on how to set up an account. How many hours do they give you to take the state exam? And what's your passing grade always need to be?
75.
You know what your score is if you don't pass. You don't give you your score if you do pass. I know it's going to suck to hear this. All you care about is that document that says, congratulations, you pass. Right when you go back to the reception desk, they give you your results.
So it's like-
Not on the computer screen. You gotta, yeah, exactly, suspension. That dreaded walk back to the front. Results are received at the facility. I already mentioned that. You have to wait at least how many hours before you reschedule if you don't pass?
24
Yep.
hours.
You have unlimited attempts, but every time costs a fee. And you have the option to pay for review of the test you failed within 21 days.
I think there's a smartest thing. The smartest thing to do is to spell the test.
To do the review, pay for the review, okay. Not the smartest thing to do is fail, okay? All right, any questions? Yes. Yes.
Both have photo or no?
Signature identification, and they do want a photo. Last time I checked. So a debit card, sometimes they put your photo on your debit card. Sometimes they put your photo on your debit card. Yeah, depends on the bank. 2 forms of signature identification is the most important. So be prepared for that. Otherwise, they won't let you sit to take the test that you scheduled, right?
Everything that I have.
Soon as you sit down, write down all the formulas you can remember. Remember that? Who suffers from test anxiety? Like you study, you know your stuff, but you get in front of a computer screen and you blank out. This is how you beat it. Skip those first few questions. Usually those are the one, read them out, but just if you get nervous, just skip until you get to one of those questions where there's no way anybody can get it wrong. And answer those ones first. And what you'll find out is you're going to start to build confidence. I know it sounds silly, but it's very elementary. You do that, you build that confidence, and you keep on building, and you can always go back. Here's the thing. The beautiful thing about the state exam, you can mark questions you're unsure of or nervous about, and you can always go back to them on a separate list.
Select the question.
Okay? Skip the ones that are taking you a little bit to figure out or you're nervous about. Only answer the ones that you're confident with, and then go back. Yes. Yes.
But I have this thing, I can start in the middle, like, my head doesn't make me go, like, I have that one, I have
Yes.
that one.
Take the test in the way that's efficient for you, okay? I can't tell you something that might not work for the next person. I'm trying to use broad strokes here. So please, if you know what works for you, yeah, and of course, all of the above, shortest, longest, 3 things look similar, 1 answer sticks out.
You just don't know, like, it's not.
These strategies work. All right. with that being said, we are done. Not bad for 1,000.
Woo!
Excuse me, Michael.
Ryan is in the hospital.
The only.
He got a virus, some freak virus, and it was some virus, and he ended up, it affected his heart, and he ended up being hospitalized.
Oh wow.
I hope he gets better too. I can't believe it. And this place runs on him, you know, like he has help, but he has like office managers and so forth, but like he's the heart and soul of, and he's such a great guy, very knowledgeable. I wish he could have spoken to you, but what you can do is you could take his business card, and on that, you can actually schedule an appointment just to chat with him. Ask him any question you want. Okay? With that being said, we're done with our session. Did you guys enjoy class?
No
Did
school
you learn a
tomorrow?
lot?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Online, somebody has a question?
Yes, me.
Yes.
So no school tomorrow?
No class tomorrow. You're going to get credit for tomorrow.
He's gonna be the birthday party.
Michael.
No? No, on Sunday. Sunday, we're celebrating his birthday. Tonight, we're going to have a dinner. Yes. Question online.
Michael, is it smart to start the test, the state test, by the math questions and then go to the others?
You can start wherever you want.
Okay.
You can go back and forth as many times. It's not like one of those exams where you go to
No.
the next question and you can never go back. You can
Mhm.
actually go back.
So I mean, because it takes more time, right? So maybe.
Efficient. If you're taking longer on one particular, don't take too long on these questions because you can't remember. Just move on to the next one. Because if you take too much time on that one, it leaves you less time for the others. And what I found out is something very interesting. Questions later on in the exam will help trigger your memory and help you answer questions from the beginning of the exam. And sometimes the question you'll see later on tells you the answer for a previous question.
Mhm.
Listen,
Thank you.
can you make me a promise? Can you make me a promise? I won't ask too much. Can you let me know when you pass your state exam?
How do I contact you?
Yes. It's not the
Email us.
Same question,
Michael@CameronAcademy.com. If you want support, it's support@CameronAcademy.com. So Michael@CameronAcademy, it's our website, CameronAcademy.com. So Michael@CameronAcademy.com. And you could please send me a photo when you pass your state exam, okay? With a cheesy picture. Yes, exactly. And then also, we have two traditions. Usually we take a graduation photo. It's up to you. I usually ask if you enjoyed class, hopefully you did, and you learned a lot, please help us out and write a review, please. Okay? Google Maps, Yelp, Facebook, follow me. I don't get too deep into conspiracy. I'm more like, I'd like put political stuff on there, but I put a little real estate stuff as well. Anyhow, follow me on the social media stuff. Stay in touch with me. Let me know, not just when you pass your state exam, bingo, when you get your first commission check. Can you do that? Take a photo. And if you're feeling generous, you know.
I was, hey, Michael,
I'll take a gift basket or something, you know.
Michael,
Yes. Hold on one second, Jaleesa. Yes. Michael@CameronAcademy.com. Yes, Jaleesa.
I just had a quick comment, and I'm actually glad that you brought up the reviews. Overall, like one of the most used words that they describe you with is charismatic. And I 100% agree. You definitely 100% Riz, sir. 100%.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if you want to add to that charismatic review, then you can do that. Please help me out with that. It does make a difference. You always see it on these videos. Like, subscribe, it helps me with the algorithm. But really with Google, I think this education is something that everybody should have. I've been preaching that since the beginning, right? So even if you don't get the real estate license, the two teenagers you're referring, high schoolers, I welcome them because I know how valuable this knowledge is. So if you want more people to have this type of education, how do we get eyes? Well, we get eyes through reviews. So if you can put it on Google, on Yelp, Facebook, help us out, please. It makes a difference. Thank you guys so much. And I'm here for you.
Thank you.
By the way, I'm here for you too. If you have my email now, if you need help with something, of course, if it's like application, fingerprint, stuff like that, it's support at Cameron Academy. But if you need like personal advice or you need help with something, just email me, okay? And let me know. I'll help you out.
Michael, before leaving.
Property and casualty. Yes.
Michael,
Yes. Not in
what is the
person. It's on our website.
what is the email,
Yes.
please?
Michael at CameronAcademy.com. Thank you.
Before leaving,
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael,
can you and I talk privately tomorrow, please?
Come again?
Can you and I talk tomorrow privately, please?
Talk tomorrow privately?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
At what point and how do I reach you?
Just email me. Email me your phone number and I'll reach out to you.
10-4.
before leaving,
Is that cool?
Michael,
Yes, sir.
All right, I got you. You need some personal advice?
Yeah, a lot, sir.
I got you.
before leaving, Michael, this is not a question. I would like to ask Jose if I can have his phone number so I can work with him for the exam.
Whom?
Whose number?
Jose.
Jose?
Jose.
Yes.
Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat.
Oh, I forgot
Michael,
there was a
let me
chat.
ask you something, please. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank
Have
you.
a great night. Enjoy your
Thank
weekend.
you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Cheers.
Michael,
Have a
just
great
a
night,
quick
guys.
question.
It's a pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Yeah, take a picture of that on the TV.
Michael, do we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to take the makeup class? I lost one day.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so I will contact the
Email
the
support.
office. Uh-huh.
Exactly. Email support at Cameron Academy, or you could do the live chat on our website and tell them the day you miss and you need the link for it. It should be on your dashboard, actually. No, it's on your dashboard in the materials tab.
Oh, okay.
It's there. Yeah, if you log in, go to your dashboard, the materials tab, you'll see it.
Okay.
Good luck, everyone. Hope you guys succeed in everything.
Yeah, thank
On
you.
behalf of everybody,
You
God
too.
bless. I'll see you guys soon. I'm sure of it.
Guys, good
Have a
luck.
great night. Enjoy
Bye,
your
guys.
weekend.
Good luck for
Cheers.
everyone.
Bye.